If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 121. Hi everyone, it's Salem. The event will start tomorrow. Now I will tell you how to participate on it so you can choose which fanfic you want to be translated. This time there will be 2 challengers. A Naruto and a Bleach fanfic, both I checked them and they both looks promising. The event consists on 3 rounds of challenges. 1. The likes round. If the post gets 100 likes it will earn a point, both can win that point, will start Saturday, this is in Patreon. 2. The Power Stones round. If the fanfic gets 1500 Power Stones in web novel gets a point. Both can win that point, will start Sunday. 3. The Reviews round. If the fanfic gets 50 reviews on web novel it will get a point. Both can win that point, will start Sunday. Now what would happen if both reach the 3 points? I will pick both. The true both are fun so I kinda don't care if both win, hahaha. So if you want, try to make me pick both by doing the event. Also as bonus, if any of the FICs get into the top 10 in web novel I will make it a double chapter schedule for that FIC. Anyway, I thought it was going to be fun to do an event where you all get to participate, and if the events it's successful I may do more of them, for more new FICs or for current ones. Thanks you all for reading this, and I will see you later. Ciao. Hikaru never expected that Giratina could actually use Aura Sphere. However, Giratina explained that all 3 of the Sinnoh dragons could use this move, something Hikaru hadn't noticed before in the games. But one thing was certain, neither Hunch, Dao Blade, nor Aegislash could learn Aura or Aura-based moves. This was rather strange, considering the description of Aegislash clearly stated, it uses its powerful psychic power to manipulate people's minds. Perhaps it was because its mind control originated from spiritual power rather than pure mental strength, which was why it was not given aura-related moves. Dao Blade was somewhat excited. It hadn't expected that such a special mental power could be used to learn fighting-type moves. Following the method Giratina taught, it tried sensing the aura, and a faint blue glow emerged around it. Hikaru pondered, if it actually learns Aura Sphere, that would be a completely illegal move. But in the real Pokémon world, it's not impossible. Maybe after training, it could become a special individual. A special individual is a unique Pokémon that differs from its regular kind. These Pokémon often possess moves considered illegal or have appearances that differ from their usual counterparts. For example, the Crimson Moon from the Ursaluna family, which emerged as a powerful variant with drastically altered base stats. Lily Gant pointed to herself. She had also sensed the power of Aura and showed interest in learning it. Of course, theoretically, she shouldn't be able to learn Aura Sphere either. Even if you can't master Aura Sphere, learning part of the Aura's power would still be beneficial for your growth. Hisuian Lilligant already had a fighting-type attribute, so her grasp of Aura should progress even faster than Doublade's, right? Thus, Dowblade and Lilligant began attempting to master Aura, while Turtwig and Regirock, who had no interest in such training, roamed around the ruined workshop to search for rare materials. Turtwig circled around the strange plants near the ruined workshop. These plants were unique to the distortion world, but they didn't seem to have any special use, they were just ordinary plants. Regirock returned to its usual routine of digging up stones and examining them. Unoni, relying on its ability to fly, floated to the floating island where the dungeon had been set up and began to indulge in its own fantasies. It thought about how many Unknown enjoyed living in ruins. But the distribution of ruins was uneven, and some of them were cursed. If it could create a dungeon made entirely of ruins without any curses, wouldn't that be like a paradise for other Unknown? Meanwhile, Hikaru began crafting some ghost-type items. Crafting completed. Crafted item, Purple Chiffon, Spirit Object. Description: an item made using Pokémon materials, old cloth, Reaper cloth, and created through ghost-type crafting, infused with powerful spiritual energy. Effect: when held by a ghost-type Pokémon, it increases its attack and defense by 1 level. It also enhances ghost-type energy. When used for nurturing ghost-type Pokémon, it helps them grow more easily. Afterward, Hikaru discovered new material clues: the Cursed Cloth from Mismagius. While its spiritual level couldn't compare to Reaper Cloth, it sometimes carried peculiar curses that could either bring bad luck or good fortune. It could be used to create a cursed hat. Items like Purple Chiffon, Ghastly Ring, and Haunted Cape were all eerie ghost-type tools originating from the Mystery Dungeon world, each with different effects. Some only worked when held by specific Pokémon. Ghost-type trainers would probably love these things. Their sales should be excellent. He didn't know how long he had been working, but Hikaru eventually felt fatigued. Giratina, noticing this, timely reminded him. Your soul's energy has been excessively depleted. At the same time, Giratina stared at the ghost-type artifacts, realizing their extraordinary nature. Each one was imbued with powerful spiritual energy, something that ordinary spirit users could never produce. As expected, during that previous trade with the spirit world, this human must have gained something valuable. Or perhaps, this human had been connected to the spirit world from the very beginning. The warning from Darkrai was something worth taking seriously. Giratina pondered to itself. It couldn't let the spirit world steal away its helper. Moreover, was the spirit world really a place for the living to visit? Thanks to Giratina's reminder, Hikaru realized he should stop for now. Even though the ruined world was filled with abundant ghost-type energy, creating these unique spirit objects was not the same as crafting ordinary ghost-type tools. The consumption for each item wasn't much, but when added up, it couldn't be ignored. Time to head back, everyone. Hikaru gathered his Pokémon. Dowblade and Lilligant stopped their aura training. From the faint blue ripples emanating from their bodies, it seemed like they had actually made some progress. Lilligant placed her leaf on Hikaru's body, and strands of aura energy seeped into him, gradually easing the fatigue within his soul. Aura is mental energy, and so is the soul. Therefore, aura can replenish damage to the soul. But if you overuse aura, the user themselves can also be harmed. You need to remember that. Giratina swayed its body, its own aura far stronger. In an instant, it fully restored the fatigue within Hikaru's soul. However, even so, the power consumed couldn't be replenished, so he still needed proper rest. You should rest well. The time in the real world is already approaching midnight. I must also patrol the ruined world and re-experience this forsaken place. After saying farewell to Giratina and watching it leave in the ruined world, Hikaru and his Pokémon passed through the water mirror film and returned to the workshop in reality. Although he still felt a bit excited, that quickly faded. After placing the ghost-type artifacts in room 4, the Pokémon began to feel weary. Lilligant hugged Turtwig and slept next to the flower pots in the room. Dowblade returned to its preferred corner. Regirock stood by the back door of the forge, the H symbol on its face gradually losing its glow. Unoni returned last, floating behind the old clock. The workshop, which had been bustling all day, finally quieted down. Hikaru returned to his bed and closed his eyes. Dreams began to turn pink. Hikaru opened his eyes and found himself waking up in the little house of the dream world. Just after leaving the ruined world, he found himself in the dream world while dreaming. Ah, this really doesn't let a person rest. Hikaru scratched his head, feeling somewhat helpless. Walking Wake didn't seem to be in the house. It was probably out picking things up. He turned his head and looked at the items inside the dream world's house. The lightstone was still sitting where it had always been, untouched. But soon, Hikaru's expression stiffened. Next to the lightstone was a pitch-black stone covered in bite marks. Without a doubt, this must also be part of Walking Wake's loot. Crafted item, dark stone, unable to be taken out. Description 1, the remains of Zekrom's body after its destruction. It is said to be waiting for the arrival of a hero. Description 2, its surface is covered in scars. Within the dream world, the dark stone continues to replay the nightmare of destruction from 2,500 years ago. Item function, it may possibly serve as an electric power source. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 122. Hi everyone, it's Zalum. The event will start tomorrow. Now I will tell you how to participate on it so you can choose which fanfic you want to be translated. This time there will be 2 challengers. A Naruto and a Bleach fanfic, both I check them and they both looks promising. The event consists on 3 rounds of challenges. 1. The likes round, if the post gets 100 likes it will earn a point, both can win that point, will start Saturday, this is in Patreon. 2. The Power Stones round, if the fanfic gets 1500 Power Stones and web novel gets a point. Both can win that point, will start Sunday. 3. The Reviews round, if the fanfic gets 50 reviews on web novel it will get a point. Both can win that point, will start Sunday. Now what would happen if both reach the 3 points? I will pick both. The true both are fun, so I kinda don't care if both win, ha ha ha. So if you want, try to make me pick both by doing the event. Also as bonus, if any of the FICs get into the top 10 in web novel, I will make it a double chapter schedule for that FIC. Anyway, I thought it was going to be fun to do an event where you all get to participate, and if the events it's successful I may do more of them, for more new FICs or for current ones. Thanks you all for reading this, and I will see you later. Ciao. Zekrom, one of the legendary Pokémon of the Unova region and one of the 3 dragons of Tao, is a mythical Pokémon said to burn the world to ashes with its lightning, aiding those who strive to create an ideal world. According to legends, if humans lose their sense of justice, Zekrom will destroy their kingdom with violent thunder. Hikaru opened the door and surveyed the surroundings. The Pecha berry field was thriving. Theoretically, crops in the dream world's orchard should grow 50% slower than in reality. But now, many trees in the orchard were already bearing Pecha berries. The power of the Lightstone has filled this place with vibrant life. The growth rate of crops in the dream world has increased by 100%. So that's why. Upon touching one of the Pecha berry trees, Hikaru understood why the berries were growing so quickly. It was due to the influence of the Lightstone he had brought back. Besides that, there didn't seem to be any signs of damage. The information about the Dark Stone mentioned that it was still reliving the nightmares of the past. Based on the previous situation with the Lightstone, it should have triggered a large-scale disaster in the dream world. Judging by the current state, it seemed the Dark Stone had only recently been brought back. He couldn't allow it to ruin the crop production. Hikaru immediately gathered tools and began polishing the Dark Stone, following the same crafting process as he had done for the Lightstone. Crafting enhancement. Through your exquisite craftsmanship, the Dark Stone has undergone some changes. All the scars on its surface have disappeared, and the stone seems to have calmed down, no longer releasing anger. Its inherent energy has increased. The power of the Dark Stone will enhance the surrounding energy. New enhancement. Due to your advanced knowledge of petrology, all your rock-related crafts are enhanced. Effectiveness and elegance of the stone are increased by 30%. With platinum nurturing, you can inject energy into the Dark Stone to accelerate its transformation. Hey! Hikaru held the Dark Stone, carefully examining his masterpiece. The energy emitted by the Dark Stone had indeed increased, something he could feel with his spiritual power. Its appearance had also become more beautiful and mysterious, exuding a subtle, captivating allure that made it hard to look away. Just staring at it felt like observing a piece of frozen history. The strange feeling even left Hikaru amazed. Ancient and modern coexist, history and future intertwine. If he could carve some reliefs and patterns on the surface of the Dark Stone as decorations, it might further enhance that mysterious feeling. But even with its current plain appearance, it was already impressive. Acquired knowledge, art of the stone. Your artistic understanding of rocks has improved, increasing artistry by 25%. Creating and observing his crafts could enhance his own knowledge. Hikaru placed the Dark Stone down, silently acknowledging the profound effect of his advanced petrology knowledge. Although artistic value couldn't be applied to battles, the Pokémon world wasn't just about fighting. In daily life and product sales, artistry was a crucial selling point. After all, people pursued beautiful things. No one would intentionally buy ugly items unless their functionality was overwhelmingly powerful. Hikaru then attempted to infuse his own power into the Dark Stone. Would spiritual power work? As his spiritual energy entered the Dark Stone, his knowledge as a dragon tamer activated, causing the hidden dragon energy within the Dark Stone to grow. Crack! The light stone emitted some noises, drawing Hikaru's attention. Faint flickers of firelight appeared around the white stone. When Hikaru touched it, he saw its status. The mood of the light stone seems to be bad. Stones have moods now. Is Reshiram about to awaken? But this is just a dream. Hikaru couldn't figure out what was happening, so he tried injecting some of his own power. The mood of the light stone has slightly improved. Hikaru. Unable to figure out what the stone was thinking, Hikaru placed the light stone down and, by imagining his backpack, pulled out some electrical devices and connected them to the Dark Stone. Immediately, a surge of electricity poured into the imaginary devices, causing the light bulbs installed on them to light up rapidly. The dream workshop was illuminated by the lamps, and when Hikaru tested it with electrical instruments, he found the power provided by the Dark Stone was exceptionally stable. If it's used as a power source, it's really convenient. Compared to that, the fire source of the lightstone is quite useless. After all, it can only be used in the forge, and I don't seem to have anything to forge here in the dream world. Hikaru muttered to himself. The lightstone trembled slightly again. The mood of the lightstone has worsened. What a joke! Saying it was less useful than that black dragon? Fire is the primal driving force of civilization. Even if there's nothing to forge, couldn't it at least be used for warmth? The will of the lightstone was utterly displeased. As its observation target and candidate for a hero, Hikaru had gone and praised the dark stone, which was simply a betrayal. But Hikaru didn't notice this. Instead, because of his contact with the dark stone, he discovered new information. The mood of the dark stone is very joyful. Collected dark stone powder. Hikaru gathered the powder that had fallen on the ground during the polishing process. He remembered he should have collected the lightstone's powder last time, but he had forgotten due to the dream ending too quickly. Rare material, dark stone powder. Description: powder obtained by grinding the dark stone. It can be regarded as Zekrom's leftover energy. Effect: giving it to dragon or electric type Pokémon can help them grow better and enhance the power of dragon and electric type moves. Acquired craft: powder processing, B+, allows any special material to be processed into powder with unique effects. The powder can be incorporated into various tools, enhancing or altering their effects. As expected, this powder was valuable. Then, how about polishing the lightstone now? Hikaru muttered, but then the lightstone made a cracking sound. It seemed to be saying, hurry up. But unexpected events always happen ahead of time. Hikaru heard the sound of Pokémon calling outside the house. It was Turtwig's voice, so he quickly rushed outside to find it. The lightstone. He just left like that. Wasn't it attractive enough? Fire lost to electricity? How could it be having such a dream? Wait, this is a dream. Within the dark stone, Zekrom's consciousness had fully awakened. It was somewhat puzzled. Its awakening should only occur when the hero of ideals appeared. Until then, its true body existed within Dragon Spiral Tower in the real world, while its body in the dream world was resting within the ancient city, endlessly reliving the dream of destroying the ancient city, locked in eternal combat with the imaginary Reshiram. Reality and dreams are opposites. During the ancient conflict, it had gained the upper hand slightly, and Reshiram's real body resided within the ancient city. But not long ago, its consciousness had faintly stirred. A giant dragon it had never seen before had barged into the ancient city, ignored its barrier of power, and pulled it from the ancient city's dream, bringing it to this strange wooden workshop. After that, the creature left, and just now, that human entered the dream. Was that human the hero of ideals? Who? Was it the water dragon that kept picking things up, or the human right before its eyes? The human's skills were incredible. Its previously hazy consciousness had been fully awakened by his craftsmanship. Not only that, but its power and attribute energy had also grown, which was simply unbelievable. Even during the ancient kingdom era, when its first master, one of the original twin princes, was alive, there was no way for its power to grow so quickly. It was one of the most powerful Pokémon in the world. Making a legendary Pokémon at the peak of power grow even stronger was nearly impossible for ordinary humans. Precisely because they didn't have such abilities, they couldn't elevate ordinary Pokémon to the same power level as legendary Pokémon, which was why they sought the might of legendary Pokémon like itself to achieve their ideals. But this human was different. His abilities were incredibly strange, and not only did he enhance Zekrom's power, but even its output efficiency had improved. Zekrom could clearly feel that if it returned to its original form now, the power of its dragon and electric type moves would be entirely different from before. That was because the output efficiency had been modified. Oh! This was an unprecedentedly beautiful beginning. Anger had dissipated, nightmares had subsided, power had grown, and energy had been enhanced. And most importantly, Zekrom's will swept through the surroundings, quickly noticing the presence of the lightstone Reshiram. The lightstone seemed to have arrived here earlier than itself. Although it was unclear what had happened, the polishing effect on that thing was clearly not as good as its own. The will of the dark stone transmitted directly into the lightstone. Long time no see, Reshiram. The lightstone immediately released a feeling of disgust. The relationship between the black and white dragon was complex, sometimes friends, sometimes enemies, sometimes they helped each other, and sometimes they fought. But at least for now, within the lightstone, Reshiram's consciousness was flooded with a feeling of jealousy. It was clearly the one polished first, yet the effect achieved by the dark stone was better. And it had poured so much energy into the growth of the workshop's crops. Was it true that new things were always more favored than old ones? Who is that human with such extraordinary skills? The dark stone asked, wanting to find out Hikaru's identity. But the light stone, not wanting the dark stone to claim its observation target, chose to lie with a tone filled with annoyance and warning. He is the true hero. Receiving his polishing allows you to break free from the shackles of the mind faster and accelerate the recovery of your body. But you've already gained the benefits, so don't get any other ideas. The will of the dark stone was suddenly startled. So that's it, the true hero had already appeared, but within a dream. That made sense. Dreams were false, and they corresponded to the truth of reality. Therefore, the true hero appearing in a dream was perfectly fine. The concept of opposites and reflections, after all, this was the essence of the Unova region's legacy. I didn't expect to be granted such great power by the true hero. I feel somewhat ashamed. Thinking about the abilities it had gained from the polishing, perhaps the true hero didn't even realize its true identity. And as the dragon of ideals, receiving power from the true hero made it feel somewhat off balance. After all, truth and ideals were destined to be in opposition. If it accepted the power of truth, how could it ever confront the other side? Moreover, if the true hero had already been chosen by Reshiram, the dark stone, but are you sure he has no grand ideals of his own? Zekrom still wanted to make one last effort. The light stone remained silent for a moment before Reshiram's consciousness suddenly came up with a brilliant plan. If you admit that truth is more important than ideals, then perhaps he does have ideals of his own. Are you willing to accept that? Now, it was Zekrom's turn to fall into silence. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 123. Hikaru had no idea about the hero snatching game going on within the dream workshop. Hearing Turtwig's voice outside, Hikaru became certain of one thing. This time, the one who triggered the dream world was Turtwig. Perhaps because Turtwig was not sleeping beside him, Hikaru didn't see Turtwig when he entered the dream workshop. But the voice came from near the Dream Sky Island. There were paths connecting to other floating islands. Hikaru saw two roads, one led to the floating forest island where Dragon Spiral Tower was located, and the other led to an ancient city and cave island. Dragon Spiral Tower and the ancient city, hey? But there's also a third road. Hikaru looked toward a small path on the left. A rainbow bridge extended to a third floating island, which featured mountains, snowy fields, and a dilapidated temple. Boom! From the distant snowy field of the third floating island, a blinding light beam erupted. That was Solar Beam. Is it fighting a Pokémon from the dream? Dreamy snowfield. Turtwig was shivering all over, unable to understand why it ended up in such a place. It was terribly afraid of ice and snow. Tur? Where was Dowblade, Lilligant, Regirock, Unown, and its trainer? They were all missing. How did it suddenly get thrown into this place? Did that mean it was abandoned? Turtwig trembled, and the leaf on its head drooped down, its emotions hitting rock bottom as despair overwhelmed it. But even if it was abandoned, couldn't it have been abandoned in a better place? This place was really cold. Thud. Turtwig walked with its head down, emo and filled with self-doubt. Suddenly, it bumped into something, causing it to shake its head. It felt soft, then looked up. A Pokémon resembling a standing rabbit appeared before it. But Tur. Such a big head. The silver-grey rabbit had a gigantic crowned head, resembling a dark green bud, staring at Turtwig with wide eyes. Why have you appeared in my dream? The plant on your back. Let me take a look. Tur. Solar Beam. Without a second thought, Turtwig unleashed a solar beam, blasting the crown-wearing Pokémon away in an instant. Fortunately, this was the dream world, and everyone here was a grass-type Pokémon. Calyrex shook its head and floated back up, leaving Turtwig's mouth wide open in shock, unable to make a sound. Attacking with solar beam right away. Was it a reflex? But the power of that solar beam is remarkable. Are you carrying a power herb? Wait, I've seen you before. Calyrex's gaze suddenly sharpened as it uttered the classic line from an RPG game. Indeed, it had seen this before. When Calyrex was feeling emo in Galar, it used its weak psychic power to peer into the distant sacred city and saw its doll, greatly improving its mental state. After that, to preserve its remaining strength and to rest better, Calyrex entered a secondary sleep while holding its lingering regrets. And then, something miraculous happened. Strange faith-based energy began gathering from all corners of the world. This faith energy came from people who possessed psychic powers, which greatly puzzled Calyrex. And as the king of bountiful harvests, it could clearly recognize that it was in a dream and could sense the sources of faith even while dreaming. The faith of those powerful psychics allowed me to recover my strength quickly. I wanted to end this dream, but the psychic power I regained allowed me to foresee that something I longed for might happen if I stayed in the dream. So, I continued to wait here. I saw you at that workshop. Calyrex also attempted to observe its followers in the dream, but since most of them were psychics, its attempts were mostly ineffective as their mental barriers shielded them. This left Calyrex a bit frustrated. Its attempts at observation were not out of any weird curiosity or strange hobby. It was merely trying to see if its followers needed any help from it. If only they would ask, it could grant their wishes. Well, maybe not right now, but it could at least make a promise to fulfill their desires once its power was fully restored. Moreover, rather than observation, it was more like sensing through psychic power. During its peak, it could perceive everything from the past, present, and future. But now, its power had weakened to the point where it could only watch from a distance. However, even if it couldn't see the followers themselves, it could still see their Pokémon. And among its followers, the earliest one, the Craftsman follower, had this Turtwig by its side. "Your master, is he a craftsman who can create miraculous dolls?" Calyrex asked with an excited tone. Turtwig looked surprised, asking how Calyrex knew. When Calyrex confirmed Hikaru's existence, its gratitude and excitement could no longer be contained. "So that's the good thing my psychic power predicted. My wish has come true in the dream world. If you made it here, that means the craftsman's dream is nearby. Can you take me to him? I want to thank him. Although I am still a bit weak, thanks to the craftsman's help, my power is gradually recovering." Waking up from deep slumber was all thanks to his efforts. Turtwig looked puzzled. "You're related to us? But we've never seen you near the workshop. Are you like Giratina, living inside a mirror or something? I am not near your workshop. I reside in Galar, a place far away from your land. Long ago, I was known as the king of bountiful harvests. Just a wave of my hand could make the earth fertile, soil rich, flowers bloom, and all Pokémon and humans would worship me with devotion. But due to certain events, I lost my power, my steed left me, and humans no longer believed in me. Fortunately, thanks to your master's help, I could restore my power within the dream. As for Giratina, I am unfamiliar with it." Calyrex recounted its glorious past and current difficulties, but Turtwig didn't hear any of that. It only realized one thing: this was a dream. Which meant it was not abandoned. "Yes." The leaf on Turtwig's head immediately perked up. "Tur. After all that talking, can you help me find my trainer? My power can help you establish a mental connection with your master. All you need to do is let me touch you." Turtwig's eyes sparkled with excitement. But there was still one more thing. "What else do you want to ask?" Calyrex looked at the gleaming-eyed Turtwig with some confusion. And then, Turtwig asked the ultimate question it had wanted to ask all along. "Calyrex, Calyrex, why is your head so big?" Turtwig didn't receive an answer. But it didn't care. It only asked if that big head was some sort of precious plant. If that was the case, then could you? Calyrex. Moments later, when Hikaru entered the snowy floating island in search of Turtwig, he quickly saw this scene. A small turtle was running across the snowfield, with Calyrex riding on its back. Its giant head swayed back and forth in the snow, looking like a miniature version of Torterra. Calyrex riding on Turtwig. Ability, Hare and Tortoise combination? End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 124. Event started. Pick up the new fanfic. A rabbit riding a turtle? Hikaru never expected to see such a rare scene, but upon second thought, this was the dream world. Anything absurd happening here was entirely possible. After all, this was a dream. The light stone and dark stone were sitting together, so what else was impossible? That Pokémon with a huge cauliflower-like head, looking like a rabbit and riding on Turtwig's back, was undoubtedly Calyrex. If its ability is hare and tortoise combination. Overgrow and unnerve doesn't seem all that useful. Hey, even if you lost your beloved steed, that doesn't mean you should go around riding any Pokémon you come across. Hikaru muttered to himself as he saw Calyrex's tiny hand pointing in his direction. Turtwig, I'm over here. Hikaru quickly called out to the little turtle running aimlessly. As soon as Turtwig heard his voice, it immediately stopped. Calyrex pointed toward the direction of the voice. Over there, over there. That's your trainer. Turtwig spotted Hikaru and rushed toward him, looking relieved and joyful. Finally, it had found its trainer. Hikaru stared dumbfoundedly at the hare and tortoise rushing toward him. As Turtwig leaped into his arms, it tossed Calyrex off its back. Splat! Calyrex lay flat on the snow. Tur! Turtwig immediately turned around, panicked, and hurriedly jumped back to prop Calyrex up. It's all right. I understand your feelings. After all, I am a benevolent king. Calyrex floated back up, swaying unsteadily before gazing at Hikaru with eyes that seemed to pierce through everything. Are you the one who has been assisting me? The craftsman who creates miraculous dolls. Calyrex's emotions were filled with excitement. After all this time waiting, it was finally paying off. He had finally met the pious follower who had been supplying him with power. You are Calyrex, right? So this place is your dream. Does that mean this floating island is the crown tundra? Hikaru squatted down. Mostly because Calyrex's head was so big that if he looked down from above, all he could see was a giant cauliflower. And Hikaru couldn't help but think the same thing anyone would when meeting Calyrex for the first time, what a big head. Hello, did the doll I made help you recover your strength? You seem to be doing pretty well. You really do know my legend. Calyrex now fully believed it. Hikaru must have known his legend and made the doll to help him. Calyrex's mood brightened significantly. I once thought, if I could meet the one who helped me, it would be wonderful. Though I do not know who you truly are or why you know of my existence, it is thanks to your efforts that I have been able to wake from my slumber. Even though my strength is still weak, at least everything is getting better and better. Once my strength recovers a bit more, I will be able to seek out my beloved steed once again. But Calyrex's mood suddenly dropped, and he looked somewhat embarrassed. But Hikaru quickly guessed the reason behind Calyrex's hesitation. You're talking about the two steeds, Spectrier and Glasstrier, right? Precisely. Calyrex nodded. A long time ago, after I lost my power, my two beloved steeds abandoned me. If I could once again tame both of them, I could regain my full strength, or at least something close to it. However, miraculous doll-making craftsman, I have a request. Can you craft a Reins of Unity? To tame my two steeds, that is a necessary tool. Nearby where I reside, there is a village where the descendants of those who once wove the reins still live. However, they have lost their faith in me. Even if I appeared before them, they likely wouldn't believe in my existence. And perhaps they have already forgotten the method of weaving the reins. Long ago, the reins were woven with the power of human faith. With them, my power would be enhanced, allowing me to easily control my steeds. But starting several hundred years ago, no one has offered those reins to me again. I remember the materials needed to make the Reins of Unity, at least according to the games, Hikaru replied. Perhaps you've forgotten, but the materials required are Spectrier's or Glasstrier's main hair, and the glorious flower that blooms from your power. What? Calyrex's eyes widened, looking a bit dazed. You say the glorious flower and the manes of my steeds. So, that's how it is. No wonder humans haven't been offering the reins to me for so long. Flower. So it wasn't because humans forgot their faith in me, but because I failed to provide them with the necessary materials. It seems I have been misunderstood by humanity for so long. In the storyline, Calyrex appeared rather lazy when it came to the glorious flower. But based on its background, the reason why people forgot about it might not just be laziness. It could also be related to Eternatus. Legend has it that with its ability to see all events from the past and future, Calyrex once saved the creatures of the forest from the danger of a falling meteor. In a single night, it transferred the vast forest and its inhabitants to another place. In the Galar region, there was once a tale of a gigantic meteor, which was actually a tornado before its full awakening. This massive poison dragon fell from the cosmos, causing the darkest day phenomenon throughout the Galar region. Two Pokémon rose to challenge Eternatus and save Galarization, the Sword King, and Zamazantat, the Shield King. Thus, many have speculated that the power of kings wielded by Zacian and Zamazanta may have been bestowed upon them by Calyrex. After all, Calyrex is known as the King Pokémon. Kings and heroes, the classic arrangement in stories. Calyrex looked a bit troubled. To make the glorious flower bloom, I must expend an enormous amount of power. That's why it hasn't bloomed for hundreds of years. However, with the faith of the psychics helping me now, even though it's not a powerful force, perhaps it's enough to make the glorious flower bloom again. Calyrex was about to use its power but then suddenly stopped. But this is the dream world. Even if the glorious flower blooms here, it would be useless. By the way, how do you even know about the Reins of Unity? Even I had forgotten about them. Though it felt a little shameful to admit it, Calyrex didn't care. After all, in the eyes of a human follower, he was probably already labeled as the clumsy king. Hikaru certainly wouldn't tell Calyrex that he knew all of this from a video game. Instead, he introduced himself properly. This is my formal introduction. I am a craftsman from the Shinto region, possessing some secret crafting techniques and knowledge of various legends spread across different regions. As for why I know about these legends, well, that's my little secret. When I prayed to you, you must have heard me mention the Shinto region, right? Indeed. But I have no idea where the Shinto region is. It seems to be protected by some powerful force, and I can only vaguely sense your existence. After all, my power is still too weak. When Calyrex tried to sense the Shinto region, it always felt somewhat strained. Fortunately, the strange power over there didn't actively repel its observation, which allowed it to glimpse Hikaru's workshop and the Pokémon living there. That power probably comes from the creation god. Shinto is a place closely related to the creator, Arceus. Time, space, and antimatter were all born from that land. Hikaru recounted the grand and ancient legend, and Calyrex's eyes went blank for a moment. It had never heard of the creator before. The creator? Yes, the being who created this world. In the Galar region, there might not be much lore about it, which is understandable. Every region has its own legends. And the oldest lands in the world are Sinnoh and Shinto. It watches over everyone from beyond all time and space. But right now, it is in a deep slumber, just like you were before, because humans have lost their faith in it. Hikaru thought about Mishina, the place where Arceus's legend had been passed down. If Mishina existed in this world, then it meant the storyline about the awakening of Arceus was real, and the rewriting of history hadn't occurred yet. Upon hearing this story, Calyrex seemed to empathize deeply. This is the first time I've heard about the story of the creator god. To think that it, too, was put to sleep due to the loss of human faith. I can somewhat understand the creator's predicament. Even a being as noble as the creator god could fall into slumber due to humanity's loss of faith. Then it made sense for Calyrex to encounter such issues as well. So, there existed another being as unfortunate as itself in this world. Although thinking this way wasn't particularly kind, Calyrex couldn't help but feel a little comforted. If it ever had a chance to meet the creator god, perhaps they would have many shared experiences to talk about. You and I seem to share many similar views. Hikaru continued, I also happen to know a bit about the Reins of Unity. If I can get the right materials, I may actually be able to recreate them. The Reins of Unity required advanced and delicate weaving techniques. In the game, the chief of Freezington village couldn't craft the reins, but the highly skilled peony could. Also, during the process of weaving the reins, a peculiar song had to be sung. The flower curls round and round, weave the mane, and offer to the king. Why yes. That's the song. Calyrex's eyes widened. That's the song people used to sing when presenting the Reins of Unity to me. You even know this. Could it be that your ancestors had some connection to me? Well, who knows? King Calyrex, you've been ruling over the Crown Tundra for 3,000 years, right? My ancestors lived in the Shinto region 1,000 years ago. Perhaps, even further back in time, they really did have something to do with you. Hikaru didn't deny it but gave a vague answer, leaving room for speculation. Calyrex brightened up at the thought, if that's the case, it's as if fate itself brought you to me. No. This is a destined encounter. This way, the fact that this mysterious craftsman possessed special abilities and knew all kinds of legends made perfect sense. Perhaps the ancestors of this craftsman had traveled all over the world and encountered many legendary Pokémon. Yuri, just like the mythical wandering mage mentioned in legends. Calyrex suddenly recalled an ancient tale. It was said that a mage who wielded miraculous spells traveled around the world. Although Calyrex had never met this person, it was now imagining that the craftsman before him might be the descendant of that legendary wanderer. Calyrex's imagination ran wild, and its expectations for Hikaru grew higher and higher. Since you possess such miraculous craftsmanship, I cannot let you down. I shall leave this dream and use my power to produce the glorious petal in the real world. I implore you to come to the Crown Tundra in Galar. I hope you can assist me. Calyrex looked at Hikaru with eyes full of hope, eager for him to accept the request. For now, I can't go to the Crown Tundra. But perhaps by the end of the year, it may be possible. Hikaru explained before making a suggestion. As for the glorious petal, there's actually a way to create it here in the dream world. This is the Pokémon dream world, and I possess special power that allows me to bring items from the dream world into reality. For example, the glorious flower. If you can produce a complete glorious flower, then we can create several Reins of Unity, right? Hikaru made his intention clear. From the start, helping Calyrex was aimed at gaining power from Calyrex itself. This was about plucking the wool from the rabbit. Of course, this also benefited Calyrex, which was why he crafted the doll to help restore Calyrex's strength. What Hikaru ultimately wanted was the glorious flower and the Reins of Unity. If you leave the glorious flower's cultivation to me, then perhaps it won't require massive amounts of faith to keep the flower blooming. It may even continuously produce offspring over time. Eyes. Is something like that even possible? Calyrex's eyes widened again, still looking dazed. The glorious flower blooms from me. Its blooming requires an enormous amount of faith. Such a flower is no ordinary bloom. It's like the embodiment of my power, an external manifestation of my strength. To fully bloom an entire flower is not an easy task. With my current strength, it's likely impossible. Then, why not come to my dream workshop? Hikaru extended his invitation. My dream workshop is quite large, and there's a fertile piece of land there. In my dream workshop, the more Pokémon reside there, the more power and special qualities the workshop will gain. It's quite similar to your abilities. Since you are the king of bountiful harvests, if you stay in my workshop for a while, that land will likely become extremely fertile. It might even mutate, and I also possess abilities to cultivate special plants. During this time, I'll promote your doll and gather faith for you. In exchange, you can try making the glorious flower bloom. That way, we can even experiment with cultivating the glorious flower itself. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 125. Your idea is quite unique. In the past, there were some who attempted to cultivate this flower, but their efforts did not go well. Calyrex followed Hikaru away from the cold, barren snowy field. After all, Calyrex itself was a grass-type Pokémon, and living in such a freezing environment was quite uncomfortable. Once again, Calyrex rode on Turtwig's back. This was Turtwig's own request. Hikaru couldn't help but feel helpless. Turtwig seemed to think that carrying the large plant-like crown on its back made it look grand and imposing. Different soils can produce different crops, as seen throughout the various regions. Even though the glorious flower is a special crop born from the power of faith, I believe it can still be cultivated as long as the right kind of special soil is found. In our world, there are many special plants, some of which can even survive in extreme environments. Just like the special crops born from your power, which are called Iceroot carrot and Shaderoot carrot, right? You even know about that. Indeed, those are the foods my beloved steeds prefer. And what about you? You must have something you like to eat as well. I enjoy eating orange carrots. The orange carrot was just an ordinary carrot. In Hikaru's previous world, carrots contained a lot of water and natural sugars, and eating too many could cause digestive issues for rabbits. But Calyrex was no ordinary rabbit. Yes, it was a psychic-type rabbit king. The stereotype of rabbits eating carrots was quite common, so there was nothing wrong with Calyrex liking carrots. After all, in the movies, even Pokémon like Lucario could eat chocolate because Steel-type Pokémon aren't afraid of poison. In Shinto, there's a special type of carrot too. It's a variety passed down from Hisui called beach carrot, a type of radish that grows in cold and frozen soil. From its growing environment, it's quite similar to the iceroot carrot. In the Pokémon world, there were many types of carrots, regular carrots, iceroot carrots, shaderoot carrots, beach carrots. And even the special pony radish from Alola, something Tapu Bulu was known to enjoy. Turtwig also eagerly began explaining to Calyrex. Back when Hikaru first caught it, he had told it all about various kinds of soil. Peat soil, terra soil, volcanic soil, landerous soil, the soil from the Tree of Beginning, and various rocks. Even materials from ground-type Pokémon could enrich soil, making it more fertile and nutritious. Also, its trainer could mix special soils to help crops grow better and larger. The plant on its back was growing so well all thanks to its trainer's efforts. Indeed, even though I am merely riding on your back, I can sense that the soil on you is extremely fertile. Calyrex's massive head swayed as it looked at Hikaru, once again affirming. I never expected you to possess not only remarkable crafting skills but also great expertise in cultivating plants. Cultivating plants is a type of craftsmanship too. Preparing soil, taking care of crops, managing sunlight, climate, humidity, and understanding the specific nutrition and environment each plant needs. These are all important aspects of the knowledge. People in ancient times didn't fully understand these concepts and merely followed traditional practices. But now, these concepts have been refined and are easier for people to study. Hikaru smiled. Of course, if grass-type Pokémon help take care of crops, then even basic cultivation techniques can produce excellent harvests. I even have a partner in my workshop who specializes in helping with this. I also know of a very special soil called illusory soil. It's a rare type of soil from another world. Whether it exists in our world is still unknown, but it's said that seeds planted in this soil won't wither even if they are left unattended. It's the most suitable soil for cultivating all kinds of crops. Where this soil comes from is long lost to history, and it's considered a dreamlike treasure. Perhaps it could be found at the Tree of Beginning or on some remote islands. But that's just my guess. You really do know a lot of legends. Calyrex's expression was dazed, completely believing everything Hikaru said. To Calyrex, Hikaru was already a mysterious figure. Calyrex even imagined that if it ever regained its former position ruling over Galar, Hikaru would undoubtedly be its chief minister. If such soil truly exists, then it might be possible to continuously cultivate the glorious flower. Exactly. So, I was thinking, with the help of Pokémon's powers, maybe we could artificially create similar soil. That's why I need your help, too. I will do my utmost to assist you. Calyrex was completely convinced and started to fantasize. If the glorious flower could be cultivated in large quantities, then it wouldn't have to fear losing its power anymore, nor would it have to rely on the power of faith to make the flower bloom. Ah! But if that happened, wouldn't it become lazy again? It needed to be vigilant. Calyrex's mind immediately sounded the alarm. But when you mentioned another world, were you referring to outer space? Maybe. Or perhaps another world that can be accessed through special crafting artifacts. I only know that such a world exists, and it's said that over there, humans don't exist, and only Pokémon live. Then wouldn't I hardly receive any faith from that world? Pokémon were not creatures that would easily place their faith in other Pokémon. And even if they did, after a generation or two, they would forget everything. After all, that was just how Pokémon were. Calyrex pondered. If that world didn't have humans, then it would be quite unfriendly to it. Even if it could travel there, it didn't want to. Hikaru asked, so most of your power comes from humans? Calyrex replied, humans provide more faith than Pokémon. And humans tend to preserve history and pass it down, forming civilizations where faith becomes stronger and more enduring. Hikaru understood. After all, Calyrex was not a god, but a king. A king was a title that only came into being after the formation of civilizations. Crossing the Rainbow Bridge, Calyrex saw other islands connected to the central floating island. There was a towering structure, an ancient cave city, and even its own snowy plains. But when they arrived outside the workshop, Calyrex suddenly sensed an overwhelming abundance of life energy. And that life force was coming from, inside the workshop. This island's environment is like something out of a dream. No, wait, this is a dream. Calyrex muttered to itself, realizing Hikaru's dream workshop was far more beautiful than its own crown tundra. There was even a field full of thriving berries, looking lush and flourishing. Is this the farmland? Indeed, although it exists within a dream, this farmland is more fertile than any land I've ever seen. It's almost on par with the soil I used to create at my peak. If this land is so bountiful, then once my power is restored, it might even be possible to create the illusory soil. Dreamlike soil born from a dream. That seems reasonable, doesn't it? To think that it would one day become a farmer. But, after learning all this new information, Calyrex understood there was still much to learn. Hikaru's interface displayed. Invited Pokémon, Calyrex. Effect: with Calyrex settling here, the floating island will expand, and the soil and plants will undergo beneficial mutations. Higher quality soil and special crops may appear. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 126. As expected, after Calyrex settled down, the power obtained by the Dream Workshop was related to abundance. Hikaru opened the door, and Calyrex was carried in by Turtwig. At this moment, Calyrex was thinking that if he could make more Reins of Unity in the future, perhaps he could prepare one for this Turtwig as well. The combination of a turtle and a rabbit might seem a bit ridiculous, but as long as it's strong enough, it would be fine. This could also be considered his way of repaying the little turtle, allowing it to borrow his power. And at the moment the door opened, a certain exchange of power that had originally existed in the room gradually ceased. The light stone and dark stone both fell silent, pretending that nothing had just happened. Earlier, the light stone and dark stone had engaged in a deep exchange, debating whether truth or ideals were more important. The light stone wanted to use Hikaru's presence to make the dark stone bow down, but Zekrom within the dark stone was unwilling to just lose to Reshiram like that. Although the hero of truth and the hero of ideals could indeed be the same person, ideals were definitely more important than truth. This was his belief as the dragon of ideals. If it weren't for him and his Pokémon finding you and hearing your call, you wouldn't have received his gift. This is the embodiment of truth. Reshiram's words left Zekrom speechless. Of course, Zekrom didn't want to confront Reshiram here. After all, he was in the wrong, and he had also accepted the gift of the hero of truth. So, Zekrom thought of a compromise. He might not be able to become the hero of ideals, but his Pokémon had the ideal of eating every Pecha berry in existence. Then, as long as that water dragon becomes a hero, the master of the hero dragon would naturally be a hero too. In this way, he wouldn't be in conflict with Reshiram's choice. After all, this was the new hero chosen by the hero of ideals. Reshiram was furious at this statement. Of course, Zekrom had another idea. The hero of ideals might not necessarily be able to realize his ideals, but at the very least, he is someone filled with ideas about the future. So, the current hero is the hero of truth, and the future hero is the hero of ideals. This doesn't conflict at all. The truth of the present is stronger than ideals, but the ideals of the future will be stronger than truth. Reshiram. In any case, I will consider it as you acknowledging that the truth of the present is stronger than ideals, right? In that case, I permit you to accept the gift of my hero. Although this result was somewhat of a compromise, at least both the black and white dragons believed they had obtained what they wanted. Hikaru sensed the mysterious atmosphere in the room and introduced it to Calyrex. This place is filled with vitality thanks to the power of the light stone. This stone is the dormant form of the legendary Pokémon named Reshiram from another region. The other stone is the dark stone. Calyrex felt the immense energy contained within the two stones, but he was somewhat puzzled. Another dormant legendary Pokémon? So, there are many powerful beings like me who have been sleeping all this time. His mood suddenly improved. The two stones before him appeared quiet, but Calyrex noticed something strange. It seems these two stones were just having some sort of exchange. Their energies collided. Is it really okay to leave them here? Intense energy residue still lingered in the air. Although the hostility wasn't too strong, Calyrex could feel that the two stones did not seem to be in harmony. If it was just a simple argument, would it have resulted in such a severe power clash? Ah, it's fine. Sometimes they oppose each other, and sometimes they help each other. That's just how the two legendary dragons are. One honors ideals, the other worships truth. It should be fine. After all, the relationship between the black and white dragons has always been one of love and conflict, Hikaru thought. Representing truth and steam industry, Reshiram, and representing ideals and electric industry, Zekrom. If their energies could be stored, perhaps unique items could be created. Just as Hikaru was pondering this, he suddenly noticed something strange under the light stone. Rushing over to inspect it, he discovered it was a piece of stone that had flaked off from the light stone. Rare material, fragment of the light stone. Description: a fragment that inexplicably peeled off from the light stone, which can be regarded as a tangible representation of Reshiram's power. Effect: if given to fire-type or dragon-type Pokémon, it will enhance their growth and strengthen their power. Obtained craft: Amplification Box Craft, B+, this is the craft of creating special machines. It requires corresponding mechanical knowledge and can produce machine boxes that store Pokémon energy and produce unique effects. An amplification box. Referring to devices like the magma amplifier and electric amplifier. The structure and assembly of such machines seemed to be recorded in the mechanical manual Hikaru had previously given him. Speaking of which, these two boxes were unique devices discovered only in recent years and were even included in special research projects. Who exactly made them is still unknown. Sometimes, similar items would appear in ancient history through space-time distortions, but Hikaru had already deciphered their structure. Hikaru held the fragment, staring at the light stone with curiosity, continuously observing the stone's condition. Why did it suddenly shed its skin? Reshiram's ability is not supposed to be shedding. And can stones even shed fragments? Could it be sick even within a dream? The dark stone at the side. Just now, he left behind powder, and this time, the light stone responded by leaving skin fragments. Was it working so hard just to assist the hero it had chosen? Try injecting some power into it. Hikaru channeled energy into the light stone, thinking something was wrong with it. Under his gentle influence, the surface of the light stone became brighter and purer, radiating powerful vitality. The light stone is feeling very joyful. It seems there's nothing wrong. Hikaru scratched his head, but then he heard a roar from outside. Something is approaching from outside. Outside the workshop, a dragon's roar echoed. Calyrex immediately rode the Turtwig out the door and saw a huge dragon running across the rainbow bridge leading to the ancient city. An intruder? Let me drive it away. Calyrex's eyes turned sharp. He never expected an invading Pokémon to appear in such a peaceful dream world. Long ago, my steed also rampaged across the land. I subdued them, made them submit to me, and ended their rampage. Although the Pokémon before me looks like a dragon. I've never ridden a dragon before. No, that looks like my Pokémon. Hikaru squinted and saw Walking Wake returning. It's Walking Wake. Roar Walking Wake quickly crossed the rainbow bridge, holding something in its small claws. When it saw Hikaru, it grew excited, wagging its tail as it ran over. But when it saw Calyrex riding on the little Turtwig. Roar! Walking Wake tilted its head. Ha, what a big cauliflower! Is this a new kind of food? Roar! Walking Wake's eyes shone with curiosity and it bit down on Calyrex's big head. You! What are you doing? Calyrex's eyes widened, his little hands anxiously waving around, tears almost bursting from the pain. Let go, you rude beast. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 127. Hikaru quickly stepped forward and patted Walking Wake. This is Calyrex, a friend who's here as a guest. Walking Wake, let go. Roar! Walking Wake finally realized the big green head in front of him wasn't some special food. He unhappily released his bite, his eyes showing a displeased expression. So, it wasn't food after all. How boring. You actually mistook my head for food. Although it's understandable for an ancient Pokémon like you to be unaware of etiquette, you are far too rude. Calyrex was very angry. His head might be big, but it shouldn't be mistaken for food. Walking Wake is an ancient Pokémon from a very distant past. I can't say exactly how far back, but it could be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years ago. It comes from a very primitive era, so it doesn't understand manners at all. Please forgive it. Hikaru took out a special herbal juice from his imaginary backpack. Here, take this. Please forgive him. This is... super delicious. Calyrex curiously accepted the herbal juice. After a simple sip, his eyes widened in shock, his legs stretching straight out. The bite marks left on his big head by walking wake quickly disappeared. Calyrex realized this was no ordinary food. What? What exactly is this? Herbal juice. It's a special medicine I made that can restore energy, heal injuries, and eliminate hidden ailments. I also have some food for training. Hikaru pulled out the food from his backpack. If this was in the real world, Pokémon who eat my specially made food would experience powerful growth. This also applies to legendary Pokémon like you. Simply. I've never tasted anything so delicious. Calyrex tried the energy cubes and rare candies, his rabbit-like eyes narrowing with satisfaction. This was even tastier than the orange carrots he used to love. My power is slightly growing. Although it's not the power of faith, this is elemental energy. This feeling is truly wonderful. Damn it. Why does this have to be a dream? If only this were real. Calyrex buried himself in the food, making exaggerated crunching sounds like the ones from Minecraft. Roar Walking Wake nudged Hikaru and put down what it was holding, seeking attention while its tail wagged constantly. Watching Calyrex eating so happily, Walking Wake looked quite displeased. This little Pokémon seemed to be getting a lot of attention from its trainer. Hey? Roar. Walking Wake crouched down and examined the turtwig beside the rabbit. So, what's this little turtle then? He's our workshop's new companion. Hikaru introduced Turtwig to Walking Wake. Turtwig had already heard Dowblade and the others mention Walking Wake frequently, and now that he finally saw it. Wow, what a huge and mighty dragon! Turtwig's mouth gaped open in surprise, frozen with awe. Walking Wake, on the other hand, enjoyed this admiration from a junior and immediately made a satisfied purring sound. At the same time, Walking Wake was also inspecting Turtwig. That strange sword can cancel attacks, and that round little plant helps crops grow. So, what special ability do you have, little turtle? If Lilligant represents cultivation, then Turtwig represents the most basic soil. It can absorb soil and strengthen its shell, and after evolution, it essentially becomes a moving piece of large land. Hikaru picked up Turtwig, and Walking Wake's eyes rolled around, suddenly licking Turtwig. While this was meant to express friendliness, it only made Turtwig a bit frightened. Although they were companions, Walking Wake's majestic appearance was intimidating, making Turtwig feel fearful. Purr. Walking Wake made a low growl, leaning over to Turtwig's head, eyes gleaming with brilliant thoughts of the future. Buddy, when you grow up, can I plant pecha berries on your back? Hikaru and Turtwig. At this moment, Hikaru noticed the thing Walking Wake had placed on the ground. After all, this guy had gone out scavenging and first found the dark stone. Maybe there were some other Pokémon materials, but Hikaru hadn't checked carefully before. And this was... Roar Walking Wake shook its mane and began pulling out all the treasures it had collected from its fur. A large number of Pokémon materials and gems spilled out, even making the feasting Calyrex widen his eyes. An evil dragon that collects treasures and guards them personally. It seems the legends from Galar are appearing once again. This habit reminded Calyrex of the ancient evil dragon, Eternatus, which had once plagued Galar. However, although this Pokémon named Walking Wake was as unruly as Eternatus, at least its personality wasn't as ferocious. Roar, roar! Walking Wake excitedly began describing its grand adventure to Hikaru. What a thrilling experience! At first, it had gone into the dream of another black dragon to take a stone that no one wanted. It was an ancient city, but when it left the city and entered another Pokémon's dream, it encountered an old enemy. That blue-bodied Pokémon, the one whose horn it had bitten off with Fire Fang last time, had returned, this time teaming up with two other Pokémon it hadn't seen before to launch an attack. 3 against 1, how despicable! A blue-bodied Pokémon, with a broken horn. So, you ran into Cobalion again. Hikaru chuckled. Walking Wake had previously caused chaos in the dreams of Pokémon from the Unova region, even humiliating Cobalion, one of the swords of justice. He didn't expect Cobalion to seek revenge so quickly, this time bringing the other two swords of justice for a righteous 3-on-1 battle. Too bad Walking Wake was alone in the dream. If only Raging Bolt and Gouging Fire were here, then it could have been a fair 3-on-3 fight. Roar! Walking Wake grumbled while scratching its face with its little claws. If it was a 1-on-1 fight, it wouldn't be afraid at all. But 3 against 1? It really couldn't beat them, so it just ran away. It was strange, though. It hadn't even entered the blue Pokémon's dream. How did they encounter each other? It had clearly entered a grey-colored dream. Since there was nothing worth finding in that dream, it just returned to the ancient city and gathered some stuff to bring back. However, from Walking Wake's adventurous experience, Hikaru started having some interesting thoughts. Do you still remember the path leading to the Swords of Justice's dream? Roar, roar. Walking Wake nodded, indicating that it remembered the way. But it quickly shook its head, showing that it didn't want to encounter those 3 guys again. They only knew how to gang up on others. If we can find them, maybe we can ask them to teach us the sacred sword technique. Hikaru had an idea. Next time, if Doublade could enter through the dream, and with the help of Walking Wake's connection to the Unova Pokémon, Walking Wake could lead the way. They could build a new rainbow bridge, and if they managed to invite the Swords of Justice to their floating island or connect the rainbow bridge to them, then learning the sacred sword from them might result in even greater power. Maybe next time, I'll need you to help me meet them. Hikaru patted Walking Wake. We'll help you regain your pride. That's the way Pokémon relationships work, it's all about battles. As long as they acknowledge each other, conflicts can easily turn into friendships. Roar. Walking Wake's eyes lit up. If it had its trainer's help, it could definitely defeat them. After all, its trainer could bring out all sorts of potions and amazing tools. Calyrex, who was still enjoying his meal, glanced at Walking Wake. Although you are quite rude, you are a friend's Pokémon. If my friend needs help, I can lend a hand as well. Once my strength has recovered a bit, fighting within the dream can be. What Calyrex meant was that it could be used as rehabilitation training. After all, when he had lost his power before, he was bullied by 2 horses. From Walking Wake's description, the Pokémon that attacked him, known as the Swords of Justice, also seemed to be quadrupeds. If that's the case, maybe he could even try riding them. Hikaru thought of this and looked at Calyrex with some curiosity. Calyrex, riding Cobalion? Being able to merge with the Pokémon he rides sure is convenient. Next time, should he let Calyrex try riding Walking Wake to see if it could become a new Pokémon with Super End Dragon-type attributes? A Dragon Rider King, wielding Aegislash in hand, that would be amazing. Hikaru said with a grin, with the King's help, it's like having the assistance of 100,000 Pokémon. Calyrex proudly raised his big head, but the praise made him a little shy. In my prime, I was quite powerful. Though not as strong as 100,000 Pokémon, I certainly won't disappoint you. Although his words were modest, his expression was full of joy. At this moment, Turtwig suddenly remembered something and spoke to Calyrex. Its trainer is also a king, you know. What? Calyrex's eyes turned blank with disbelief as he stared at Turtwig. Turtwig went on to talk about Hikaru's partner Doublade. Doublade had always wanted Hikaru to become a new king and establish a kingdom, so it frequently mentioned the matter. I see. With your trainer's intelligence and abilities, it is indeed possible for him to become a king. Calyrex agreed with Doublade's vision and secretly wondered whether he should pass on his previous nation-building experience to Hikaru. No, he had become too lazy in his later years as a king. Such experience probably wasn't worth passing on. Should he bestow the power of the king upon this friend once his strength was restored? Hikaru didn't notice the conversation between Calyrex and Turtwig, as he was being dragged by Walking Wake. Walking Wake bit down on Hikaru's arm, pulling him towards the pile of stuff it had brought back. All right, I'll check now. So this is what you've collected, hey? Hikaru picked up the strange round object. At first glance, he thought it was just another stone. But the light stone and dark stone had already been retrieved, leaving only a stone known as the God Stone. However, that stone was most likely something left by Qrem, and since Qrem itself was not dormant, it was unlikely they'd find the God Stone here. Hikaru cleared away the dirt and sand covering the round object, revealing its unrefined color. It looked no different from a fossil, with some faded patterns, but the exterior now finally revealed what it actually was. Is this a Pokémon egg? Suddenly, a flood of information surged into Hikaru's mind. Strange item, egg of Volcarona, ancient city cannot be taken out. Description, an egg left by a certain Volcarona from a very long time ago. If hatched, it will give birth to a Pokémon known as Larvesta. However, due to being buried underground for far too long, it has partially fossilized. Yet, it seems that the rhythm of life still exists within it. Through special nurturing methods, it may still have a chance of hatching. Within the dream, this egg can be hatched, and the hatching progress of this egg existing deep within the ancient city will correspondingly advance. Gained knowledge, 1. Hatcher's insight, these are some hatching tips from an excellent breeder. The Pokémon eggs you possess will be easier to hatch. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 128. The insights from the Hatcher's knowledge. Wait a minute, something about this knowledge doesn't feel right. As Hikaru was trying to comprehend this knowledge, he keenly noticed some crucial parts. For example, bringing a Pokémon egg to specific locations can allow it to learn some knowledge in advance and influence its personality and abilities after birth. For instance, if taken to a game center. Could this be Gold's insight? Gold, a character from the Pokémon Adventures manga, was one of the protagonists from the Gold and Silver era. In the games, his counterpart is Ethan. As a Pokédex holder, his special ability was hatching. But Gold's personality was somewhat mischievous and careless, with a free-spirited nature. And although his ability was related to hatching, he often did nothing during the hatching process. This was his own description. Later, he gained a better understanding of hatching. For Pokémon eggs, Gold only needed to nurture them with sincerity and care, which would speed up the hatching process. Hikaru carefully tried to grasp the essence of this knowledge. The information within this knowledge was very formal. Since it lacked tone and emotion, it was hard to detect anything wrong at first. But after analyzing it more closely, it became clear that something was off. However, putting aside the parts about game centers, amusement halls, and pool-related things, the core of this knowledge was still very useful. Indeed, Pokémon eggs hatched in different places and environments could have varying personalities and abilities. Recent research by Professor Elm pointed out that Pokémon eggs could sense the surrounding environment and situation even before hatching and would respond accordingly. The mood and behavior of the hatcher could also affect the state of the Pokémon. Eggs in research facilities are carefully nurtured to prevent them from absorbing too much external information, thereby developing problematic personalities. After all, if a rookie trainer received a Pokémon with behavioral issues or a delinquent nature, just like Gold's Tijipai who mastered billiards, poker, and dice games, that would be quite the disaster. Newbie Pokémon, wearing black sunglasses trainer, go and cook me 2 dishes. Just imagining that scene was enough to make Hikaru burst out laughing. Well, as long as I remove the parts related to Gold, this hatching insight is still quite valuable. Of course, once the elements associated with Gold were filtered out, there wasn't much left of the knowledge. This was what they called taking the essence and discarding the dross. As for the egg in his hand, in the black/white games, deep within the Relic Castle's ancient city, there was a Volcarona that had lived for hundreds of years. In Pokémon Adventures, this Volcarona was captured by Ghetsis and laid an egg, which hatched into a Larvesta and was used by the Dark Trinity. In the games, this Volcarona wasn't discovered by anyone. It quietly stayed in the deepest chamber of the Relic Castle, where the room was filled with beautiful sacrificial pottery and an ancient mural depicting the legend of Volcarona. The sun Pokémon Volcarona was revered as the incarnation of the sun since ancient times. According to legend, when volcanic ash blocked out the sun due to a volcanic eruption, Volcarona's wings emitted light to replace the sun's radiance and illuminate the world. Perhaps that Volcarona, having lived for hundreds of years, was reminiscing about the people of the past, which was why it never left. However, it was strange that the ancient city was filled with sand. What exactly did Volcarona eat to survive until the modern era? That remains a mystery. What you hold in your hand is a Pokémon egg? Its life force is very weak. Let me help it grow. Calyrex still had some crumbs from the energy cubes left on the corners of his mouth, and he looked at the partially petrified ancient egg with his wide, blank eyes. He raised his hand, gently gathering psychic energy. A faint life force flowed from Calyrex's body, injecting into the ancient egg. Huff! Huff! Is this the limit of my power now? Calyrex looked at his hand in frustration. The power he could currently exert was just too weak. Hikaru, however, was curious. Is this power the same as the one that stimulates land and plants to grow? In the games, Calyrex once promised to show off its power in front of the protagonist, only to struggle and produce a single carrot from a farm. But perhaps that was also a manifestation of Calyrex's life-giving power. Calyrex, it's my healing pulse. But my power is too weak right now. I can't fully restore this egg to its original state. Roar Walking Wake growled softly. So, this thing wasn't a precious stone? It was a Pokémon egg? Do you even know what a Pokémon egg is? As a paradox Pokémon, Walking Wake belongs to the undiscovered egg group and cannot breed in the games. But Hikaru wondered. For an ancient Pokémon like Walking Wake, was reproduction also done through eggs in its era? Roar! Walking Wake rolled its eyes upward, showing confusion and contemplation. It didn't know. It had never thought about such things. Primitive creatures didn't have such weird requirements. As long as they could fight and eat, they were satisfied. But eggs did exist in its time. Hikaru, then, do you even have a favorite Pokémon? Roar Walking Wake expressed that it loved pecha berries. Then it looked at the petrified egg, as if ancient memories had been awakened. When it came to hatching eggs, there was a shortcut: just spray fire directly. As Walking Wake roared and opened its mouth to breathe fire, Hikaru quickly held its mouth shut. You're not trying to hatch the egg, you're trying to roast it to eat. Saliva was already dripping down. Roar, roar! Walking Wake protested, insisting that it had truly seen eggs hatch from fire before, and breathing fire really could accelerate the hatching process. It wasn't just messing around this time. Hikaru pondered about Walking Wake's claim of eggs hatching from fire. Perhaps it referred to the eggs of a Pokémon known as Slitherwing, which is believed to be the ancient variant of Volcarona. Although Larvesta, Volcarona's pre-evolution, was said to be born from the sun and could absorb flames, that was just an ancient myth. Judging by the weak life force within the egg, one burst of flamethrower would probably extinguish its life force altogether. I have a good idea. Hikaru's eyes gleamed as he carried the nearly petrified egg into the room and placed it next to the light stone. The light stone's power would fill the surroundings with vibrant life energy. By absorbing the power released from the light stone, perhaps the Pokémon egg could gradually regain its true form. The light stone is puzzled by the egg. To speed up the hatching process, Hikaru, having understood the essence of egg hatching, even created a stone statue of Arceus within the dream. The statue of Arceus could influence the Pokémon egg being hatched, enhancing its potential and possibly even making it a shiny Pokémon. However, just as the Arceus statue was placed, the light stone and dark stone trembled slightly. This statue. It seems to be affecting me. I feel it too. A strange thought emerged in the minds of the light stone and dark stone. This statue possessed miraculous power, created by the very hero candidate they had chosen. And the black and white dragons had already experienced the special tools and abilities crafted by this artisan. But now, was this egg-hatching statue trying to treat them as eggs too? End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 129. The two stones could feel changes happening within themselves, finding it all quite unbelievable. Meanwhile, Hikaru was checking on the condition of the egg. After coming into contact with the light stone and the statue, the petrification on the egg's surface seemed to be gradually fading. When Hikaru touched the eggshell, he could vaguely feel a warm current, which made him overjoyed. This sensation was precisely a sign that the Pokémon egg was starting to hatch. Then, Hikaru carefully polished and wiped the egg. Craftsmanship enhancement. After your meticulous polishing and cleaning, the egg's condition has improved, and its luster has increased. With the help of hatching insights, the flow of life energy within the egg has become smoother, aiding in the hatching process and enhancing the individual value of the hatched Pokémon. This should be fine now. The egg seemed to be responding to Hikaru's emotions. Waves of warmth surged from its core, filled with a sense of joy. Although it was still weak, there was no doubt it was awakening from its slumber. The egg seems to be waking up. It's observing the outside world. But this is a dream, so it feels curious about everything. Munch, munch. After using his power earlier, Calyrex was quickly munching on energy cubes to replenish his strength. Seeing the changes in the egg's condition, Calyrex sighed in relief. If the egg had recovered to this extent, it could definitely be hatched. He was a benevolent king, and saving the life of a Pokémon was his duty, even if it wasn't a Pokémon from Galar. However, what attracted Calyrex's attention even more at this moment was the statue Hikaru had carved. Never mind what Pokémon the statue depicted, just the craftsmanship alone left Calyrex wide-eyed, his expression turning blank again. Oh, oh, oh. Such craftsmanship could be considered a masterpiece of art. At the same time, Calyrex couldn't help but recall the wooden carving left in Freesington. That was a statue the people of old had made for him long ago. He once thought that sculpture was quite decent. But looking at this one now, the difference was way too big. My friend, I have a request. Calyrex stared unblinkingly at the Arceus statue. That statue? Could it be? Hikaru proudly introduced his work. This is a stone statue of the creator, Arceus. The art of sculpture is a craft passed down in my family, so my skills are quite good. So this really is Arceus? No. That's not what I wanted to ask. I wish to request that you make a statue of me as well. Calyrex's mind was filled with the wooden statue in Freesington. Due to its age and abstractness, it had even been used as a tourist attraction to lure visitors. But no, ancient things could be made beautiful too, couldn't they? Hikaru had mentioned that his family's craft had been passed down for generations. Could his ancestors have been exclusive artisans who crafted sculptures for the creator? How amazing! Calyrex's eyes shone with envy, and even a tear rolled down his cheek. Hikaru, hey, King, why are you crying? Calyrex, these are tears of joy and admiration. I also want such a statue. Creating a sculpture for Calyrex was a simple task, especially within the dream world where such things could be done with minimal effort. Well, it's no problem, King. Do you have any specific material requests? I have no particular demands. As long as it perfectly captures my image, it will be fine. Riding my steed. Ideally, both of them together. No, let's sculpt glass trier first, and then spec trier. Calyrex stared eagerly at Hikaru. Although he had only just arrived at the workshop and hadn't started working, he had already eaten a lot of food for free. He felt a bit embarrassed about it, but all of it was necessary to restore his power, and for eating. Oh, marvelous artisan with mystical powers, please help me once more. You're a troublesome one, you know. But this is an easy task. Hikaru recalled the events from the games where Calyrex's wooden statue had its appearance restored, and Calyrex's power had returned somewhat. Perhaps the sculpture itself wasn't important, but rather the villagers' renewed understanding of Calyrex's form. However, while Freesington's wooden sculpture may not have had special powers, Hikaru's sculpture certainly would. Hikaru quickly came up with a good idea. He set his sights on the floating island connected to the ancient city. The floating island's terrain consisted of caverns. The dreamscape's ancient city appeared deep within these caverns, and the stones there were called relic stones. Using the relic stones from the ancient city to craft the sculpture, while also building a new forge and cultivation room beside the dream workshop, sounded perfect. Hikaru explained his plan to Calyrex, who approved of it. They immediately began making a wooden cart to transport the stones. Walking Wake gathered wood from the small forest, and because of the dream's properties, many steps and time were saved. Once the cart was made, Walking Wake pulled it while Calyrex rode the Turtwig following behind. They all headed towards the floating island connected to the dreamscape's ancient city. The floating island was swept by yellow sand, with sandstorms attacking the Pokémon. Walking Wake let out a roar towards the sky, using sunny day. The weather changed, and the sun drove away the sand, making the temperature rise. As they entered the caves, they found numerous stones, and near the entrance of the ancient city, many large rocks and stone bricks were scattered about. Calyrex's eyes emitted waves of psychic energy. Even in his weakened state, he could still use a small-scale confusion move. Turtwig, use Leaf Blade to precisely cut those stones. Hikaru commanded Turtwig. He avoided having Walking Wake do it since its power was too great to control precisely. Turtwig had previously learned how to use Leaf Blade to cut stones accurately from Dow Blade and Lillygant. GNA. Turtwig shook its head, sending out half-moon-shaped leaves that precisely sliced the stones, leaving smooth, flat surfaces. Hikaru walked to the entrance of the ancient city, examining the ruins and picking up a brick that had fallen to the ground. Rare material, relic stone, from the dreamscape's ancient city. Description: debris left behind after the collapse of an ancient ruin. It may have other uses. Gain style, ancient city style. Description: once glorious and magnificent, buried by the sands of time. Effect: slightly enhances the artistry and authority of craftsmanship, connecting the hearts of humans and Pokémon. With the help of Calyrex's psychic power, the cart's load capacity increased. After several trips, they collected a large amount of stone, piling it next to the dream workshop and marking out the general area needed for construction. Hikaru then went to the room representing the plates of Arceus and brought back a load of cement and mortar. For now, though, the focus was on making Calyrex's statue using the relic stones. Calyrex stared at Hikaru's actions, his eyes wide open. Though he wanted to replenish his strength with energy cubes, he was too afraid to interfere with Hikaru's work, so he just held the cubes in his hands without daring to eat them. King, your statue is done. Working within a dream is much faster than in the real world. Hikaru had carved a large stone from the ancient city into a statue of Calyrex, depicting him riding glass trier. Oh! This is me, no doubt. It's even cooler than the real me. The ancient aura pouring out from it using the relic stone really produces this kind of effect. If only this statue could be taken back to the real world, I would surely gather even more faith. Calyrex lovingly stroked his stone statue, his eyes filled with emotion and excitement. He finally had a proper statue. For some reason, I can feel a vigorous life force coming from this statue. It's almost like there's a second me within it. Meanwhile, Hikaru was checking the statue's information. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 130. Artwork, large ancient statue, masterpiece, ancient city style. Description, a statue carved in the ancient style, depicting Calyrex riding the white steed. Its sculpting and antique styling are so realistic they could be mistaken for the real thing. Made from relic stones from the ancient city, it possesses strong artistry and authority, perfectly complementing the king's appearance. It seems capable of storing the power of faith and connecting to the hearts of life. Artwork Effect 1, Land of Abundance Material Output plus 100%. Artwork Effect 2, Revitalization. Even barren lands can be guided to flourish with life. The statue's effects were incredibly powerful. Hikaru pondered over the fact that these effects could be combined with the Giratina statue and the light stone, potentially reshaping even the most desolate lands. Hikaru explained the statue's effects to Calyrex and asked if he was satisfied. The response was a resounding yes. Calyrex's expression was filled with emotion. My friend, I must thank you once again. With this statue, my power can recover even faster. And with the power of this statue, it will be much easier to cultivate the glorious flower on this land. Hikaru, exactly. So, once we finish building the new structures, we'll start the glorious flower cultivation experiment. If we can successfully grow the glorious flowers in abundance, and place this statue within a sea of blooming glorious flowers, that scene would be breathtakingly beautiful. Hikaru's description made Calyrex's eyes sparkle with anticipation, drifting into a fantasy of the future. A garden of glorious flowers. It would surely be revered as a miracle by both people and Pokémon alike. Good. I feel filled with strength now. Let us proceed with building the new structures. Calyrex thumped his small chest, his face full of confidence. I am quite skilled at building, you know. Have you heard of the giants of Galar? During my reign, powerful giants emerged and brought calamity to the ancient people. With my help, the ancient people sealed them away and built temples. Those sealing temples were constructed with my power as well. The giants who once brought disaster to the ancient people were the 5 legendary giants sealed away in the Crown Tundra. Unlike the giants of other regions, the Galarian giants seemed to have had poor relations with the local people. The records about Regieleki stated that its power was so overwhelming that it brought calamity to people, so they fitted it with binding rings to limit its energy. Supposedly, releasing those rings would unleash its hidden, formidable power. Similarly, the lore about the dragon-type giant, Regidrago, mentioned that the ancient people feared if its entire body was ever completed, their nation would be destroyed. Therefore, they sealed it away in the depths of a temple. Hikaru, unlike the giant legends from other regions, the Galarian giants don't sound very friendly. Upon hearing the words other giants, Calyrex was momentarily startled and then grew curious. You said, other giants? Hikaru, yes, legendary giants exist in various regions around the world. And depending on their environment and habitat, their personalities differ greatly. There are giants in the Sinnoh region as well, and some of them are my friends. They were likely created by Regigigas to help the ancient life forms of various regions. Some of the giants even have important missions, such as guarding certain crucial things to prevent foreign invasion. I do know a bit about Galar's temple legends, but I never expected it was you who sealed them. Sealing them was rather simple. It seems their unrest was due to the disappearance of their creator, the king of giants, which caused them to become restless and conflict with the humans I ruled over. As for the reason for the conflict, I have already forgotten. It was far too long ago. Calyrex recalled those giants. Their era of creation actually predated his own emergence. Originally, the giants and humans coexisted peacefully. But at some point, conflicts arose, and humans, unable to resist the giants' power and fearing for their survival, sought Calyrex's help. I never imagined that giants existed all over the world. So, their origins have such a secret behind them. This is truly eye-opening. Hikaru wasn't particularly surprised by the conflict between the king and the giants. While the game's plot never explicitly stated it, it was already odd enough that Calyrex made no comments about the various ruins scattered across the Crown Tundra. After all, those temples were situated on his kingdom's land. But if Calyrex himself had constructed those temples, then everything made sense. And it just so happened that Calyrex had control over sealing techniques. Hikaru, king, the buildings you construct won't have sealing effects, will they? Hikaru asked suspiciously, glancing at Calyrex. Calyrex's bunny-like face turned red. And no, absolutely not. My power is far too weak to create buildings with sealing effects. My friend, you have nothing to worry about. As if eager to prove his own weakness, Calyrex widened his round eyes and began using psychic to pile the stones together. After stacking them with his psychic power, the gaps between the stones became seamlessly connected and merged into one. How's this? With my psychic abilities, I can make the stones bind together and form sturdy walls. Calyrex wiggled his nose and closed his eyes, looking quite pleased with himself. Even though he was weak, he was still strong. Huff. This is tiring, but for the sake of appearances, he couldn't show it. After all, he was a king. Gasping for breath multiple times was unacceptable. Ugh, his head felt so heavy. Hikaru, it's true, psychic power is indeed convenient. I've probably said this countless times already. Oh, by the way. Hikaru looked at the sturdy wall and suddenly thought of something. Why not use the 3 construction-related crafts he had at his disposal to build a small architectural structure as practice before restoring the Rock Mountain ruins? Well then, King, I'll be counting on your help. But I'd like to make a few adjustments to the construction method. Relic carving, ancient architecture, environmental sculpture. Hikaru pulled out the necessary tools from his backpack, took a few deep breaths, and then began working on the stone walls with incredible speed. At the same time, he instructed Calyrex where to place specific stone materials. At first, Calyrex was puzzled by Hikaru's instructions. But soon, as Hikaru demonstrated his techniques, Calyrex's round eyes widened once more. What are you building? Hikaru, an ancient building, I suppose. Using a unique combination of 3 crafts to recreate an ancient style that can soothe Pokémon's anger and create an environment suitable for them to live in. Even if this building never existed before, once I build it, it will stand upon this world, and it will continue to do so. Until it becomes a true legend. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 131. Haha. Even though I just said a bunch of nice sounding things, all I really built is a simple forge. Thank you, Calyrex. It was only with your help that we were able to finish this place so quickly. Hikaru's eyes sparkled brightly as he looked happily at the first building he had built with his own hands. Crafting complete. By combining 3 different architectural techniques, a unique new building has been constructed, the Ancient Forge of Dreams. Description: this is an ancient forge built within the dream world, and therefore possesses both the dreamlike qualities and the forging power of the ancients. Items forged here will gain the dual properties of dream and antique, allowing them to resonate with various forms of occult power. In ancient times, this practice was known as enchanting. Effect: enchanted forging tools forged within the Ancient Forge of Dreams can be enchanted a second time. Depending on the attributes of the Pokémon participating in the forging, the enchantments that can drop will vary. Theoretically, the ancient forge can be used to forge any item, including legendary artifacts. However, it requires a highly skilled artisan for assistance. If an average craftsman or someone without expertise attempts it, the results may vary. In that case, this trial run was a huge success, wasn't it? Hikaru looked confidently at the forge, which emanated an ancient aura with its old-style design. It blended the aesthetics of the Sinjar ruins and the ancient castle, elevating the powers of art, spirit, and authority. It even eliminated fatigue, allowing the blacksmith to stay full of energy at all times. Moreover, thanks to incorporating environmental sculpting techniques, Hikaru infused textures from Crown Tundra, Dragon Spiral Tower, the ancient castle, and the Dream Workshop into its design using matching soils from each region as materials. Unbelievable! I don't even know how many times I've been this surprised. Calyrex stared dumbfoundedly at the structure rising from the ground, his heavy head tilted upward. A sense of peace radiated from the forge, making him feel as if he had returned to the Crown Tundra itself. Though the tundra was now a harsh and unforgiving place, it was once a flourishing land full of blooming flowers and green meadows, a prosperous territory under his reign. And now, standing before the ancient forge, Calyrex found himself reminiscing. Even though it had no actual connection to his homeland, this building made him feel like he was back in that distant age. Calyrex wiped his eyes with a small hand, overcome with emotion. That ancient, long-lost homeland. One he could no longer return to. With the ancient forge complete, it's time to place the lightstone and Volcarona's egg inside. Hikaru gently caressed Volcarona's egg. This time, you'll definitely grow up strong and healthy. Hoo. From within the egg came the rhythm of life, seemingly responding to Hikaru's hopes. The ancient forge currently only held a simple stone-built furnace, a basic iron anvil crafted by Hikaru in the dream world, and some blacksmithing tools. There was absolutely nothing high-tech about it. That much was reflected in the information Hikaru sensed as he gently touched the tools. His mind was filled with details. Facility of the ancient forge, ancient furnace, A replica of a furnace styled after ancient times, though it is merely a basic furnace. With further mastery of craftsmanship, more advanced furnaces can be built. By understanding arcane science, one could even construct a mystic furnace. Clues regarding arcane science: Azoth Kingdom / notes of Eliphas / Mage Arna. Arcane science. If his memory served him right, the Azoth Kingdom appeared in the movie Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel and was an independent kingdom located in the Kalos region. Unlike many other ancient kingdoms that flourished briefly before vanishing into dust, Azoth had used arcane science and mechanical technology to become a sprawling mechanical metropolis, developing a completely different scientific tree from modern technology. Massive gears turned everywhere in the kingdom. Visually, it resembled Galar's Motostoke city, but functionally, it was more like an ancient mechanical fortress. They even developed the technology to create artificial Pokémon and forcibly trigger Mega Evolution. The mechanical Pokémon they built using this knowledge was Mage Arna, and the key to her operation was a mechanical device embedded in her chest known as the Soul Heart. Hikaru had some ideas about the development path for mechanical craftsmanship. Right now, he couldn't craft mechanical tools, but once he fully understood Cyrus's mechanical manuals, he might be able to unlock that path. Still, he was a long way off from handcrafting machines. If the Team Rocket trio existed in this world, perhaps he could learn from them. Jesse, James, and Meowth of Team Rocket were infamous for cobbling together incredibly high-performance robots using only their part-time wages and piles of junk. They were like the orcs of the Pokémon world, masters of duct tape science and crazy ingenuity. Sadly, they were obsessed with capturing Ash's Pikachu. If they used that mechanical talent for scientific development instead, not even the top professors would stand a chance. They could probably become millionaires in no time. After handcrafted machines, the next development route would probably be Paul Dia's time machine, the future science that creates paradox Pokémon, and now, the clues he had just received about arcane science. This really is a blend of ancient and futuristic, Hikaru muttered. Ancient arcane science. Future super science. Phew. Turtwig's yawn pulled Hikaru and the other Pokémon back to the present. When the Pokémon in the dream start getting sleepy, it's usually a sign they're about to wake up. Time flies. My time in the dream is almost up. Hikaru quickly grabbed Calyrex's hand and ran to the edge of the farmland. From his backpack, he pulled out a bunch of farming tools and a book on plant cultivation. Your Majesty! It's time to grow the radiant flower. Turtwig's about to wake up, and I don't know when I'll be able to enter the dream again. Hikaru marked off a new patch of land beside the Pecha berry field. Thanks to the expansion of the Sky Island, the amount of arable land had greatly increased. Now it was Turtwig's turn to help. N.A. Turtwig, fighting off sleep, dug a small hole in the new soil and then laid down, starting to perform photosynthesis. Ooh! The soil's quality is visibly changing. Calyrex watched intensely while munching on poke blocks and other snacks. He suddenly remembered he should help too and quickly asked. What's my task? Oh, it's your turn now. Show your full power, Calyrex. I shall give it my all, and attempt to make the flower bloom once more in this distant era. Calyrex's body released a powerful psychic aura, making the entire Sky Island tremble. Claris. Brulums. Along with the incantation, a beautiful blue petal formed in his hands. Whew! Making a full radiant flower bloom is no easy feat. Friend, I have created the radiant petal. Friend. Calyrex looked around. The figures of Hikaru and Turtwig had vanished, only Walking Wake remained, staring at Calyrex with wide eyes. Ruru, they've already gone. Time's up. Walking Wake made a rumbling sound. Do you know how to plant flowers? Calyrex looked blankly at Walking Wake. Reo. Walking Wake patted his chest confidently with his dragon claw. Sigh, guess I have no choice. I'll take care of it. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 132. The sudden disappearance of his friend left Calyrex in quite a predicament. Wiping the imaginary sweat from his large head, he felt relieved that the primal dragon in front of him was willing to help cultivate the radiant flower. After all, if it was his friend's beast, it must have some knowledge of farming, right? Raw. Walking Wake tilted its head while holding the translucent radiant petal with its claw. It seemed somewhat puzzled. But, as the king of bountiful harvests, shouldn't you know how to cultivate crops yourself? In the past, I only needed to wave my hand to make flowers bloom and transform barren lands into verdant paradises. Just like what I did to this soil just now. But I have never personally farmed the land like a commoner. Calyrex's cheeks turned slightly red. As a king representing civilization, being asked such a question by a primal dragon naturally made him feel a bit ashamed. After all, he never thought he would lose his power to this extent. With my current strength, I cannot make an entire flower bloom. I can't even make ordinary crops grow on a large scale. At most, I can grow 1 or 2 plants. Calyrex rubbed his large head, and after much mental struggle, he reached a depressing conclusion, making him feel even more ashamed. Walking Wake let out a low growl, but it didn't understand concepts like kings or commoners. It only thought this so-called king couldn't even do basic planting. If he lost his psychic powers, wouldn't he be completely useless? Such a weak king. Ruru Walking Wake's big head looked around, first focusing on the pecha berries it had been cultivating. After some thought, it shook its head. No, those can't be used as samples. The trainer said this new field was meant for growing new crops, not pecha berries. Walking Wake closed its eyes and then thought of something good. Its tail swayed as it ran back to the small pile of items it had collected earlier. Using its mouth, it rummaged through the pile, finally biting down on a green vegetable and grabbing a clump of wet, blue fur. Thud. Walking Wake walked back in front of Calyrex and handed over the vegetable it was biting. Primal no, dragon of water, what is this vegetable? Why does it look like my head? Is it perhaps, broccoli? But I have never seen broccoli this big. Calyrex's small eyes widened, his doll-like arms cradling the large, green organic vegetable. Walking Wake began growling, enthusiastically describing how it had gone through so much trouble to obtain the vegetable. It was a near impossible ordeal. There were 3 monkeys gathered together, 1 spraying fire, 1 spraying water, and 1 spraying grass. Calyrex, there's no such move as spraying grass. Walking Wake, roar. Anyway, those 3 were really troublesome. It took me quite a while to knock them all out, and I picked this vegetable from the head of the green monkey. This strange plant has strong vitality. Even after being removed from its host, it doesn't wither, making it perfect for cultivation. And this fur, it was collected from the blue monkey's head. Calyrex's expression turned to, straight face, that's not called collecting. That's called blatant robbery. Walking Wake, confused. What's the difference between robbery and collecting? If you defeat your opponent and take something from them, isn't that collecting? Calyrex figured there was no point in debating morality with a primal dragon, so he dropped the topic and began examining the large piece of broccoli in his hands. Walking Wake, rah! You should try planting this plant. I'll teach you how to properly cultivate crops. They're basically the same thing. But, this isn't a flower. It's broccoli. Calyrex stared blankly at Walking Wake. Walking Wake, roar roar. It's all the same. As long as it looks like a flower, it's fine. Using broccoli to grow the radiant flower, this was Walking Wake's brilliant idea. If everything went well, the radiant petal would bloom again through the broccoli. In ancient times, some plants did grow like this. Unheard of. But since my friend has departed, and there is no one else to help me farm, it looks like I'll have to try becoming a farmer myself. Self-reliance it is. Broccoli is broccoli, I just hope your method works. So, how do I use these tools? Large question marks popped up over Calyrex's head as he tried to recall how human farmers used tools. For the king of bountiful harvests, figuring out how to use these tools should be easy. That's the wisdom of a king. This is a hoe. Calyrex whispered to himself, holding one of the farming tools, while Walking Wake looked on, completely speechless. Stop staring and get to work already. Suddenly, Walking Wake let out a deep, long roar, slamming its dragon tail into the ground, creating a tremor that startled Calyrex and nearly made him fall. After patting his chest to calm himself, Calyrex quickly defended himself. I was just recalling how to use these tools. I'm about to start working, so stop rushing me. Right. I shall begin plowing the land. Before planting, the soil needed to be tilled. Calyrex only then noticed the farming books Hikaru had left behind and quickly opened them to read. He was slightly worried because the language of this era seemed completely different from ancient Galarian. And since his friend came from outside of Galar, their written language might be completely different too. While his psychic powers allowed him to communicate mentally and verbally without barriers, reading written text was a different matter. Fortunately, the dream world seemed to correct this issue. Or perhaps Hikaru had adjusted the contents of the books when he brought them out. Either way, the words gradually shifted from incomprehensible characters to readable ancient Galarian. How fascinating! Now, there would be no difficulty in reading. Calyrex eagerly absorbed the knowledge, feeling confident in his newfound farming abilities. His eyes gleamed with determination. After 30 minutes. Very, very easy. Farming is a simple task for a king. Calyrex tried to appear calm and collected in front of Walking Wake. But he was nearly about to collapse to the ground. His head was so heavy. The more energy he consumed, the heavier his head felt. It was clear his power was greatly exhausted. But Calyrex felt joyful. Creating abundance with psychic power was one thing. But working the land with his own hands brought a different sense of satisfaction. The greatest bounty is always born from hands covered in soil. How was it? Pretty impressive, right? Calyrex proudly asked Walking Wake, only to be met with a puzzled expression. Primitive beings, dragons, don't understand soil cultivation. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 133. In the dazed eyes of Calyrex and Walking Wake, the cauliflower plant rumbled as it grew, expanding until it reached about the same size as Walking Wake before finally coming to a stop. This is simply an overspec crop. Oh! Walking Wake looked toward Calyrex. After dancing such a strange dance, this kind of thing actually happened. This is my kingly power. Ancient dragon, bear witness. This is the prelude to abundance created by our combined efforts. Calyrex proudly lifted its big head, wearing an expression of solemn majesty. Finally, it had regained some dignity. Now no one could say it was a useless king anymore. The greatest miracles often arise from absurd beginnings. But it had truly and sincerely engaged in agricultural cultivation, and with the help of the ancient dragon, this entirely new crop had been produced. If this cultivation method were applied to radishes, wouldn't there be an endless supply of giant radishes? A look of bliss appeared in Calyrex's eyes, and it began to hum sweetly and strangely, gradually falling into a delightful fantasy across the fields of the Sky Island. Massive radishes like small hills were planted, each one giving off a fragrant and sweet scent. As it looked at the mutated, now giant blue cauliflower in front of it, a light bulb also lit up over Walking Wake's head, sign of a sudden inspiration. It too began to fantasize. If the king had such powerful abilities, then wouldn't it also be possible to grow giant pecha berries? Such large pecha berries could be enjoyed all day long with utter joy. Walking Wake's eyes rolled, and it nudged Calyrex while letting out a low growl. It was actually trying to coax it. The Great, well, let's just call you the Great King for now. That title seems appropriate. How about coming with me into the dreams of other Pokémon to gather more special crops that can be cultivated? With the king's help, what was it the trainer said it would be like having the help of 100,000 Pokémon? Calyrex stared blankly for a moment, then after a short bit of thought, became slightly angry. Its cheeks flushed the color of a certain kind of berry. This is utter flattery. Doing such a thing violates the dignity of a monarch in principle. Are you asking me to sneak into other Pokémon's dreams to steal crops? I would never do such a thing. Coaxing attempt failed spectacularly. Walking Wake felt a bit disappointed, but it didn't give up. It quickly switched to another approach. Oh. Then let's not gather them. How about we trade crops instead? Tell them that as long as they move near our dream, they can grow gigantic food, and they'll surely come running. By then, it'll be easy for us to collect as we please. That way, it would be a win-win for everyone. The Sky Island could expand, the king could become a diligent farmer who grows abundant crops, and this place could become beautiful and vibrant. And then, everyone could live happily here. Calyrex stroked its big head. Your suggestion this time does have some merit. If Pokémon came to offer seeds, wouldn't it be like the times of ancient Galar? It would be a recreation of the glorious scenes from back then. In that case, it might not be a bad idea. It would even help me master agricultural skills. And it would gather power of faith. If those Pokémon saw my kingly abilities, they would surely be deeply grateful. Having gained Calyrex's agreement, Walking Wake let out a joyful dragon roar. Yes. That way I won't have to run around everywhere. The good things I gather can be handed to the trainer, and I'll definitely get praised. Auto pickup mode activated. In the workshop, Hikaru gradually awoke from the dream. The long night was over, and the Pokémon had also begun waking from their slumber. Turtwig yawned loudly and was the first to open its eyes. I feel like I had a really amazing dream. And even though I did so many things in the dream, I don't feel tired at all now. Turtwig began to tell the newly awakened Lilligant about what happened in the dream, which immediately caught Doublade's attention. Its two big eyes floated over and glared at Turtwig, showing some discontent. You all snuck into the dream world again. Hey, why does the dream world seem to be getting more and more interesting, but when I go in, it's just beatdowns. Dore. Nana. Because the version got updated. Lilligant and Turtwig both smiled kindly. Next time, we'll definitely let you in. But they really didn't know how to let more Pokémon enter the dream world. That sort of thing was uncontrollable. Doublade felt a bit down. They always say next time, but next time never comes. What about Unown? Didn't it help with the dream world the first time? Please help this helpless Doublade. Looking at everyone waking up and chatting animatedly, Hikaru glanced at the items he had brought back. No luminous petal. Because at the very moment Calyrex accelerated the petal's growth, he was forcibly ejected from the dream. This was an uncontrollable forced awakening after all, the connection was through Turtwig's dream, which he couldn't control. There were two items in his hand. Dark stone powder and light stone shard. He actually brought out two dream items at once? Maybe because the light stone and dark stone are naturally strongly connected. The former could be used as synthesis material in powder crafting, while the latter could be used in amplifier box crafting or even as an energy block during forging. Since the light stone itself can serve as a fire source, its power-manifested fragments should naturally be able to supply some energy as well. Hikaru injected his own energy into the fragments and suddenly felt them activate. These fragments seemed to resonate with the Reshiram of the real world, and indeed contained weakened versions of Reshiram's abilities. The shards carried a unique flame energy, and the more power he poured in, the more intense the heat energy they emitted. Maybe using the fragments in amplifier box crafting could create a pseudo-light stone. Hikaru rubbed his chin, thinking of this curious application. No one ever said that an amplifier box had to be a square-shaped box. It could also be created using materials from other Pokémon combined with these fragments to form a prototype amplifier. If it could recreate the power of Reshiram, then such an item could be used as a powerful enhancement or cultivation tool. Naturally, the official light stone's function as a forging fire source could also be replicated by the imitation. In the end, it's just about carving special ruin stones, right? Then, stones with power similar to the fragments, stones with powerful fire attributes, like a fire stone, or maybe volcano town stone or flame orb. He recorded the strange idea in his Craftsman notebook, deciding to try it later. At that moment, Hikaru suddenly received a strange information update. Message from the Dream Workshop. Hikaru. Hadn't he already left the dream? Why was he still receiving updates from the Dream Workshop? When Walking Wake was in the workshop before, there was no such notification. Could this change be due to Calyrax's involvement? Calyrax has settled in your Dream Workshop and begun cultivating crops. It currently only has the most basic farming tools and a few cultivation books. Calyrax will rely on these to start a new life. Can it turn this weedy, bountiful, and fertile land into a prosperous home? The Sky Island where the workshop is located seems full of opportunity. As long as Calyrax is willing to work hard, it might be able to make the Dream Island thrive. Calyrax and Walking Wake appear to be attempting something. Thanks to their combined efforts, the first fruits of abundance have appeared. Different from common pecha berries and such, Calyrax is an outstanding farmer. It and Walking Wake cultivated an entirely new crop and successfully harvested it. Calyrax/Walking Wake have jointly completed a crop crafting harvest. Mystery vegetable, luminous cauliflower, giant crop. Description: a mysterious crop jointly cultivated by Calyrax and Walking Wake. It originally grew from the special cauliflower on Symissage's head. After absorbing a luminous petal and undergoing catalysis by the two Pokémon, combined with the effect of Calyrax settling on the farm, which induces beneficial mutation in soil and plants, it mutated. With your unique crop cultivation techniques, you can better grow this kind of crop. Gained knowledge: Dream Agriculture LV1 cultivation requirements for crops in dreams will be somewhat relaxed. Calyrax gained knowledge: Farmer cultivation LV1 increases proficiency with agricultural tools like hoes and watering cans. Gaining experience through crop harvests and animal care. Walking Wake gained knowledge: Nutrient water. Because Walking Wake picked up Symisage's head hair, it obtained nutrient water and completed a special watering, gaining the ability to make this type of nutrient water. Hikaru. How are these two playing Stardew Valley in the dream world? Using cauliflower to cultivate luminous petals. So that's how you do it. You two are agricultural masters in every sense. Maybe you could grow an entire luminous series of crops too. This is basically an agricultural revolution. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 134. It seemed that if Pokémon invited to the Dreamscape Sky Island accomplished anything there, he would also receive corresponding feedback. As for why there had been no feedback when Walking Wake had previously lived on the island, well, the reason was becoming rather obvious. Back then, it had just been running around picking up random things, while the main work of planting pecha berries had actually been done by himself and Petalil. The dream world isn't that easy to enter. If I want to enter it consistently, Dream Mist is a stable means of accessing the dream world. It's a unique mist exhaled by the Pokémon Mana from the Unova region, and it can even be used to revive ancient fossil Pokémon and plants. With the right technology paired with Dream Mist, one can achieve otherwise unimaginable feats. Other than that, there don't seem to be any particularly reliable methods. Arceus, on the other hand, possesses an ability known as the Multi-Battle of Dreams. As long as one gains Arceus's recognition and invitation, they can repeatedly battle within a special dream Arceus creates, challenging powerful Pokémon and earning battle points. But getting an invitation from the creator? Hikaru didn't think he had that kind of power, not yet, at least. Besides, with his current team composition, even if he did enter the dream multi-battle, it'd just be constant beatings and setbacks. He really didn't want to engage in that kind of high-intensity battling. In the real world of Pokémon, being a trainer was a career that tested both willpower and physical stamina. Even someone as strong as Ash, the so-called Superman of Pallet Town, had faced numerous life and death crises during his journey. And if one considered battling Pokémon in the wild, well, his own father was a perfect example. So, a trip to Unova was definitely on the schedule. Or maybe he could catch a Munna, then entering dreams would become much easier. He could also try to find a Munna within a dream. That might even be better for gathering materials in some ways. As long as he could draw large numbers of dreaming Munna near his Sky Island during their sleep, it would work. In the Pokémon special manga, Black, the protagonist of the Black and White arc, had a Munna. That Munna would consume Black's dreams, emptying his mind and allowing him to enter an extreme state of thought, purging all distractions. But to Hikaru, the idea of having one's dreams eaten felt a little too intense. For an average person, having their dreams consumed even a few times would probably turn them into a dreamless salted fish, resigning themselves to a life of aimless drifting. So the danger was real. Hikaru figured that if his dreams were completely eaten, he'd probably turn into a craftsman who despised his work and just wanted to lie flat and do nothing. Still, even if he did lie flat in the world of Pokémon, he wouldn't starve to death after all. There was a berry orchard right outside his house. Just living off berries, he could safely survive until old age. According to what I heard from Steven, this world likely doesn't have black Munna can be found in a forest on the outskirts of Striaton City in Unova, where the ruins of a facility called the Dream Yard are located. Hikaru muttered to himself, planning out some things for his future trip to Unova. Afterward, he carefully placed the light stone shards and dark stone powder into a cabinet. Dao Blade, snapping out of its sulk, floated behind Hikaru. As it gazed at the two special items being placed into the cabinet, it suddenly felt uneasy at the sight of those white stones. Its two eyes glowed with psychic energy as it sensed the powerful heat energy and a certain bluish flame within the light stone shards. Yo. This thing really clashes with my energy. Reggie. Regirock's head appeared from outside the window, the H symbol on its face flashing. Today is the day we fix up the Rocky Mountain ruins. The legendary Titan was clearly concerned about the condition of the ruins. After finally waiting for the restoration day to arrive, it was visibly excited. Hikaru packed up all the necessary tools. As for stone materials, there was no need to worry, there were plenty around the ruins, and Regirock could both transport and create stone. What's more, Steven was here this time too. Good morning. When Hikaru slung his bag over his shoulder and was ready to leave, he found Steven already squatting by the berry orchard, studying the plants. Steven had been at it for a while. Whether it was berries or herbs in the field, they all looked very different from those sold on the market. Their higher quality was visible to the naked eye. Steven silently evaluated them in his heart. After all, he was a native of Hone. He could judge the quality of berries with a single glance, just a basic skill for someone from Hone. And being able to cultivate berries of this level, there weren't many people even in Hone who could do that. Hikaru quickly noticed the dark circles under Steven's eyes. When Steven noticed Hikaru's strange gaze, he gave an embarrassed laugh, then rubbed his chin with a look of deep satisfaction. Yesterday I was way too excited. I basically spent the whole night studying those stones, their formation, the energy inside them, and the directions they could be used in. I had so many ideas, I kept taking notes and writing things down. Before I knew it, it was already late at night. A stone that could make my heart race like that, and today we're going to the Rocky Mountain ruins in Shinto. I was so excited I could barely sleep. If only I had a Pokémon that knew hypnosis. Steven scratched his head awkwardly, though his excitement was still plainly visible. Yesterday and today had basically been a stone lover's festival for him, even better than a holiday. Alright, let's head to the Rocky Mountain ruins then. An ancient craftsman, a stone collector, and a true stone giant, gathered for different reasons, now stepped forward together toward the same temple. Hikaru was already very familiar with the road to the ruins, having been there once before. The massive tree that had been chopped down by Dao Blade still lay across the forest path. And when Steven finally laid eyes on the true Rocky Mountain ruins, he could no longer suppress the excitement surging in his chest. The ruins of Shinto always carried a sense of depth and antiquity. They calmed the spirit and inspired reverence. These ancient structures, standing tall through the ages, seemed to silently recount stories long forgotten. As someone from Shinto, Hikaru didn't feel the same emotional impact. But for Steven, the ruins of Shinto were fundamentally different from those in other regions. It wasn't just about the artistic carvings or decorative patterns, it was something deeper. It was a spiritual force. These ruins preserve the will and spirit of ancient people. You can feel it clearly through the stones. Stephen murmured, and when he stepped into the ruins and saw the shattered stone giant statue, a look of regret immediately appeared on his face. These ruins were severely damaged. Although broken ruins had a kind of unusual beauty, a complete site would have been even better. Let's begin the restoration. It shouldn't take too long. Hikaru pulled out his tools and stretched. All right. Time to get to work. After practicing all three major architectural crafts in the dream world with decent success, he knew that with the help of psychic-type Pokémon, the restoration could be completed swiftly. So, he needed to borrow Metagross from Stephen. You need Metagross's strength? No problem. Stephen nodded and released Metagross, giving it some instructions. Metagross then turned to Hikaru and spoke, expressing its full willingness to help him with the restoration. Hikaru was its benefactor, after all, of course it would do everything it could to repay this mysterious craftsman. Its psychic power was his to use freely. Meanwhile, Stephen was examining the structure of the ruins and the H-shaped crystal formation on the ground. This is ancient crystal. Stephen recognized the round crystals at a glance. He had seen them in other ruins before. These kinds of ancient crystals exist in many places around the world. Ancient people used their unique properties to construct ruins and influence the flow of natural energy inside them. They used these crystals to build mechanisms and channels for latent energy flow within the ruins. Different arrangements produced different effects. Perhaps traces of ancient magic remain in them. Studying ruins has always been a hot topic. Fortunately, I've seen many of these crystals before and have some unique insights into their energy patterns. The formation on the ground has been damaged. Looks like some Pokémon used earth power to disrupt the energy veins of this land. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 135. Earth Power, a special ground-type move that releases subterranean energy beneath the opponent's feet, occasionally lowering their special defense. This kind of move channels the energy veins of the earth to attack. When used in ruins, it causes very serious damage, especially to ruins with special properties. Stephen explained. The first thing Hikaru thought of was the giant bear that Regirock had mentioned. From the description provided by the stone pillar, that giant bear was most likely the already extinct Ursaluna from Hisui. Whether it was a regular boss-type Ursaluna or the special Blood Moon form remained uncertain. However, Hikaru believed the chances of it being a Blood Moon form were low. Blood Moon is a special form of Ursaluna. No, rather than calling it a form, it was more like a unique individual. Long ago, one had left Hisui, crossed the sea, and arrived in a land called Kitakami, surviving in the harsh environment there. Because the yellow moon pattern on its forehead turned red, it was called Blood Moon. It protected its body with iron-like hardened soil and had a left eye that could see through darkness. Kitakami was located near Sinnoh. In a sense, the land of Shinto and Kitakami were connected. However, the distance between them was still quite vast. Ursaluna. Stephen was confused by Hikaru's guess, as he had never heard of such a Pokémon before. Come to think of it, Hikaru was always followed by a Pokémon he didn't recognize, but due to his intense focus on rocks and Hikaru himself, Stephen hadn't paid it much attention. Judging by how Hikaru usually addressed it, the Pokémon was called Lilligant, but it looked completely different from the Lilligant he knew. Hikaru said, it's a unique species from ancient Sinnoh. Ursaluna is the evolved form of Ursaring, but it requires a special type of soil. Similarly, my Lilligant is also from ancient Sinnoh. Because the environment of Shinto is very similar to that of old Sinnoh back then, it was still called Hisui. They can thrive here. Regirock looked toward Stephen at that moment, asking a question with visible concern. Hikaru translated, it's asking if the energy flow of the ruins can be restored after being damaged. There's no problem, Stephen replied. With psychic powers, we can realign and correct the energy flow of the land. Though it will require some crafting techniques as well. I'll first etch out the path of the Earth's energy lines on the ground. Stephen crouched down and began scratching markings into the earth with a rock, drawing straight intersecting lines like a map. Hikaru stared intently at Stephen's technique, and soon, information began to converge in his mind. You have actively acquired a new piece of knowledge. Acquired, guiding pattern drawing knowledge. Description: this is knowledge on how to accurately draw guiding paths and patterns. When combined with spiritual or psychic powers, one can create terrain maps and work plans with auto-guiding phantom lines. Requires mapping craft skill. This knowledge works in tandem with advanced geology and is vital for exploring ruins. So that's how it works. I understand completely. Hikaru crouched down and, after concentrating on observing Stephen's technique, quickly picked up how to draw the patterns. Stephen was slightly stunned, then a look of admiration appeared on his face. As expected of Hikaru Dano. Just one glance and you already understood what I meant. Anyway, just guide things according to these markings. I've explored many ruins, and most of them seal away some sort of artifact. I've also encountered energy disturbances, though those were mostly accidental. For example, there's a ruin in Hone called the Ancient Ruins. Inside is a stone chamber, rumored to contain a gateway linking the ancient and modern Pokémon worlds. To open that chamber, you need to gather 4 unique orbs from various places and embed them into the chamber's walls. That's a classic example of using energy alignment guiding the correct energy to the correct location. Many ancient ruins use similar methods of sealing. But when the ruin was finally opened, the truth behind the legend turned out to be this: there was groundwater inside, connected to the ocean. An ancient relic Pokémon like Relic Ant lived there. Team Magma believed it was Groudon's resting place and tried to open it, only to be sorely disappointed. Stephen recounted this amusing incident. Later, he was invited to help investigate the ruin and made some interesting discoveries about the 4 orbs. After all, they were special stones. Team Magma had been obsessed with Groudon and didn't care for these valuable gems, which Stephen thought was downright foolish. This helped Hikaru realize the difference in ruin exploration goals between Stephen and Cynthia. Stephen focused on the stones within ruins, their crafting techniques, and their special mechanisms. Cynthia, on the other hand, studied ruins to unravel their origins and the legends associated with them. From a practical standpoint in ruin restoration, Stephen might even be more effective than Cynthia. Although thinking of friends as tools sounded a bit off. Hikaru's expression turned slightly awkward. Alright then, time to get to work. Thank you, Stephen. I'll take it from here. Everyone, get ready. Dao Blade unsheathed its twin blades, Lilligant's leaves glowed with a sharp green light, Turtwig shook its leafy head, Metagross's eyes lit up with psychic energy, and Unown blinked and stuck itself to a nearby wall. Stephen glanced at Unown, stroking his chin with a contemplative look. Unown immediately got annoyed. What the heck? You're looking at me with that suspicious face. But I can't even help with ruin restoration, so what else am I supposed to do if I don't stick to a wall? I'm just useless, aren't I? Unown's hidden power can be really effective in ruins. Although Hone doesn't have Unown, I've heard they can sense people's thoughts and manifest them. When I visited some ruins in Johto, I encountered them and saw them activate mechanisms using hidden power. Why Unown's hidden power is different from the standard version is still a mystery. Unown was stunned for a moment, then its eyes sparkled. So you were praising me, hey? And I can actually help with the ruins after all? Why didn't you say so earlier? Unown. Its mood instantly brightened. So Unown can also play an important role in ruin restoration. The environment, the land, the spirit of the ruins. Hikaru murmured. Looking at the collapsed walls and the large stones piled around, he focused his mind and used his newly acquired drawing knowledge to construct a mental sketch of what the ruins looked like when intact. This would massively improve his efficiency in constructing and repairing buildings. Hikaru pulled out some paper and began drawing. The paper he used was haunted paper, which normally induces hallucinations in readers, but also had other uses. Ripples formed on the paper's surface. When the final stroke was drawn, the paper flared with a bluish-white phosphorescence. For instance, right now after sketching the structure from his mind and handing the drawings to the other Pokémon, they immediately fell into a trance, and fully understood the ruin layout shown in the hallucination. 3D modeling complete. Hikaru raised the paper above his head, and the sketched outline of the ruin was projected over the entire ruins. The pupils of the Pokémon lit up with hallucinatory blue light. The ancient building structure was being engraved into their consciousness. This would help them assist much more effectively. Yo. Dao Blade understood it instantly. Being a ghost type, illusions didn't bother it at all. It immediately memorized the images, and psychic energy gleamed on its twin swords. The next to break free was Lilligant. Her leaves swayed. Though she wasn't as skilled in carving as Dao Blade, as long as they worked together, there was no problem at all. Now was the time for Psycho Cut/Leaf Blade. Hikaru looked toward Metagross and saw that it too had already shaken off the illusion. It nodded slightly at Hikaru, indicating it had understood the patterns. Metagross's brain possessed a complex neural network smarter than a supercomputer. With 4 brains working in parallel, it could complete any calculation in an instant. These simple diagrams? Child's play for the brain. Next came the task of transporting the giant stones. That was what telekinesis and psychic were for. Metagross activated its psychic power and began moving the stones according to Hikaru's designs. Its psychic beams simultaneously pulled and scattered debris for cleanup. Regirock used rock-type moves to produce new stones and joined Metagross in hauling them from nearby the Rocky Mountain ruins. With the help of these 2 large Pokémon, the usable stone materials increased rapidly. Seeing this, Steven released a Metang and instructed it to help with telekinesis as well. Turtwig shook its head, using Razor Leaf to cut the stones into the right shapes. Lilligant followed up with Leaf Blade, slicing the rock layers. Her emerald green energy blades wove a grid across the boulders. As she spun in elegant dance, her leaves automatically adjusted the precision of each cut. Doublade's twin swords traced overlapping psychic edges, replicating the illusion's decorative carvings with perfect accuracy. Hikaru focused all his attention on the work. The walls were being rebuilt, stones set in their proper places, compressed tightly with psychic energy. Psycho Cut and Leaf Blade rapidly shaped the rough outlines on the stone, and Hikaru's tools followed up to finish the carvings. The style of Shinto gradually re-emerged within the once destroyed ruins. The aura of antiquity slowly spread. The patterns on the surface of the walls became clear and sharp at a speed visible to the naked eye. This ruined temple was being brought back to life at an astonishing pace. What is this feeling? This ruin is... Steven had been carefully observing the restoration of the Rocky Mountain ruins, but gradually he began to sense something unbelievable happening within them. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 136. Time ticked by, second after second, as this ancient structure was gradually brought back to life. Can stones speak? Steven's answer was of course they can. Rocks whisper to those who come after, telling tales of what they once endured. And when shaped and crafted into ancient architecture, these stones hold even more stories, fragments of a weighty history waiting to be discovered, interpreted, or perhaps, forgotten on a shelf. Stones, gravel, reliefs, carvings, lines, murals. Their precise combinations and arrangements, when gazed upon, created fleeting illusions as if those freshly carved pieces had in fact existed here for eons. The craftsman merely awakened what was already there. Metagross. The Pokémon continued to use its psychic power to assist Hikaru's work, yet still turned to Steven and relayed its message. Although Steven couldn't understand Pokémon speech, after spending many years with them, trainers and Pokémon often developed a mutual understanding. Metagross raised an iron claw, and the guiding diagram carved into the floor of the ruins by Steven was instantly illuminated with strands of dim, dark blue glowing lines, evidence of magnetic field activity. This was magnetism, a force that influences steel-type Pokémon. Steven pondered the pulsing magnetism, then stepped onto the grid's H-point, applying pressure gently. The crystal grid, made from ancient crystal, lit up with a faint glow. Success? Steven kept his eyes locked on the dim light, but it quickly faded again. The activated magnetism wasn't enough. The ruins still couldn't operate normally. However, the rate of restoration was astonishing. Perhaps the carved reliefs and patterns held some sort of reinforcement or restoration effect for the ruins. Ancient psychic energy is redirecting the Earth's forces. Has Hikaru Dano and his Pokémon truly revived this power in the present era? This is unbelievable. Ruins were often damaged, but this level of restoration was unique. Steven looked up and noticed changes in the dome of the ruins. Like many strange ruins, although the interior was an enclosed space, it somehow remained well lit. But here in the Rock Mountain ruins, it had always felt darker, likely due to a disruption in the energy flow. Now, however, the surrounding brightness was rapidly recovering. A faint light streamed from the top of the dome, illuminating the floor and the collapsed giant stone statue. And suddenly, the previously cold and rigid carvings became warm. Each edged line began releasing a wavelength of energy beneficial for Pokémon growth. Psychic-type Pokémon sensed it first. A wave of warmth reached into Mitagro's mind, echoing as if from a distant past an ancient blessing. "This ruin is alive again," Hikaru said, pausing his work. In fact, the damaged sections were now mostly repaired. A tremendous spiritual force surged through the rock mountain ruins, and a hollow chime echoed throughout, bringing with it new information for Hikaru. Crafting complete. By combining 3 architectural techniques, the legendary structure Rock Mountain Ruins, Shinto, has been fully restored. Description: unlike other regions' Rock Mountain Ruins, the one in the land of Shinto features carvings and patterns created by ancient people in honor of the legendary giants. These record events from a distant past. Long ago, 3 wandering giants helped the early settlers survive in harsh conditions and taught them various techniques. In gratitude, the settlers built ceremonial temples as dwellings for the giants. The ancients received the gift of life from Pokémon, and in turn, entrusted their own lives to them. Thus, humans and Pokémon formed bonds even deeper than those seen today. Craft bonus: Rock Mountain soil rock-type Pokémon will feel calmer, and the area surrounding the Rock Mountain ruins becomes more suitable for their survival and growth. Special knowledge acquired: 3. Lost training method, an ancient technique for training Pokémon, where both trainer and Pokémon must offer equal amounts of life force. Memory crystal, requires elemental stones or similar rare materials as a base. Upon use, a random ancient Pokémon move is recalled and relearned. Secret of Rock, a special ability for the ultimate training of rock-type Pokémon. Feel the power of stone, enhance all abilities related to rock types, and turn the battlefield into a domain of rock. Rock-type energy is not solid, but slowly flowing time. With this secret art, one can artificially create environments for rare rocks to form. The first piece of knowledge came from an ancient legend passed down in both Johto and Shinto, a tale of entrusting one's life. The second knowledge was of immense value for enhancing Pokémon moves. A technique that ancient Pokémon had spent their lives refining now reawakened in a crystallized form, potentially raising the power of familiar moves to an entirely new level. And the third piece, could it allow the creation of an artificial mining field? Hikaru began pondering. In the Pokémon world, minerals are essentially crystallized Pokémon-type energy. Rare stones are the product of rock-type energy taking shape under specific environmental conditions. Their birth is relatively fast. Perhaps ancient peoples, with the help of rock-type Pokémon and unique abilities, created mining grounds this way to generate rare minerals. That would mean with the aid of powerful rock Pokémon it might be possible to semi-permanently, or even permanently, alter geological structures. The name Secret of Rock had a ring to it like an earth secret. Maybe it was the life's work of a master who dedicated themselves to rock-type training. Hikaru casually picked up a repair stone and tightly gripped it in his hand. Suddenly, rock-type energy gathered around it. In his astonished gaze, a spiritual fluctuation aged the stone, making it appear ancient and weathered. Rare material, ruin stone, Rock Mountain Ruins. Handmade ruin stones. Ha! Did I just accidentally unlock the secret of rock-type Pokémon's birth? Most rock types are born within stones or deep earth veins, Guedud, Roggenrola, Nosepass, some are even born alongside special gems. When rock energy and spiritual resonance align in the right environment, entirely new rock Pokémon might be born. That would explain why some rock types are close relatives, even if they look entirely different. The spiritual fluctuation of the ruins was still expanding. Stephen pointed to the ground. Next, we must redirect the energy of the ruins properly and precisely. Metagross, I'll need your help again. Use Psychic to guide the magnetism and energy. And you too, Unknown. Please lend us a hand. Unknown. The Unknown floated down from an intact wall, brimming with excitement. Time to shine. Watch my hidden power. Suddenly, the spiritual waves of the Rock Mountain ruins expanded drastically. The intense psychic tremor, carried by the Earth's magnetic field, reached 2 other similar ruins. To the west of the forest, nestled in an ancient rocky mountain covered in vegetation, sat a black-colored temple. And to the north, near a peat bog, stood an icy blue temple. And thus, the other 2 giants, who had slumbered for 1,000 years, were awakened along with the glowing runes. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The door of the black steel ruins swung open automatically, and a round-bodied, metal-shining steel titan emerged. Yet, this one was different from those of other regions. The runes on its face glowed and emitted strange regirai and beep-beep sounds. The steel titan seemed surprised by the changes in the outside world. The old settlements had vanished, reclaimed by the forest. Most importantly, someone had arrived uninvited before the temple. A massive orange-grey bear stood upright not far from the black steel ruins. Its black left eye locked onto the steel titan emerging from the ruins, while a blood-red moon above its head cast a faint glow. "Found you. So this is where it is." The shiny variant bear let out a deep growl. The earth plate, which could rejuvenate barren lands ever since its evolution, the bear could sense its call. Yet it hadn't expected the plate to be hidden not in the rock titan's domain, but rather by the steel titan. Steel types fear ground types. That plate must be his, he would obtain it. "Please, giant, lend me the plate's power." That was the thought of the shiny bear. But the steel titan's face runes flashed once more. It turned back into the temple. Thinking the giant meant to shut the door, the bear hurried forward. But the steel titan returned, this time holding a black, ancient, and incredibly sturdy forging hammer, radiating intense steel-type energy. A legendary giant, using a weapon. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 137. Traveler's Workshop. After Hikaru, Steven, and all the Pokémon had left, a fairly large Pokémon approached the area near the workshop. The red glow in its eyes slowly faded as a Scyther leader emerged from the forest and arrived at the workshop. Scyther, this Pokémon has a reptilian, almost dinosaur-like head with 3 distinct horns, a green body, and massive, blade-like arms that are as sharp as any legendary weapon. It also has 2 pairs of small wings. It fights using those scythes. If a part of the forest is found with many trees cut down, it's likely within a Scyther's territory. With a single slash of its arm, it can slice even large trees cleanly in two. The more hard objects it cuts, the more battles it experiences, the sharper its scythes become. It had been observing the place for a long time. Only after confirming that the owner of the workshop, the guest, the giant, and all the Pokémon had truly left did it cautiously flap its wings and fly over. Despite its name, Scyther's flight capability is limited. It can't learn long-distance flying moves like fly. In battle, its wings are mainly used for balance and bursts of speed. Cha! Scyther had only discovered the workshop yesterday. It saw Dusk Noir disappear into the forest and also noticed the humans heading into the forest depths from the workshop, taking with them a powerful orb. According to Dusk Noir, the orb originally belonged to that human, or at least, was always meant to be given to him. Scyther had heard that the orb could enhance a Pokémon's power, so it tried to steal it. Unfortunately, Dusk Noir discovered the theft. Coincidentally, a massive bear deeper in the forest had also been searching for something, so a chaotic three-way struggle began. Scyther was outmatched and failed to secure the orb. That Dusk Noir was exceptionally strong on par with the mighty Rock Titan. It now inspected the workshop with thoughtful eyes. This human had restored Celebi's shrine and possessed strange technology. His Pokémon were also remarkably strong. That meant he likely had items capable of enhancing a Pokémon's power. Stealing was a necessary step toward getting stronger. Scyther's arm blades rubbed against each other, producing a sharp, clashing sound, its heart filled with hunger for strength. In the wild, this was the Pokémon way: whoever held a powerful item would become a target. All Pokémon desired power, for at their core, Pokémon were creatures of battle. Scyther looked around, cautious despite knowing the workshop was empty. What if the human had left someone to guard it or hidden a Pokémon underground or behind a wall? That would be a problem. It stopped by the berry patch near the workshop. The berries were growing well, nearly ready for harvest. Scyther cut one down and gave it a taste, eyes lighting up in delight. Delicious. Good food always left Pokémon enchanted. Scyther even felt tempted to chop down all the trees and bring them back, but quickly gave up the idea. Its arms were scythes, not made for carrying things. Besides, if it destroyed the berry trees, that human would likely come charging into the forest to find the culprit. Scyther wanted to grow stronger and defeat that human and his Pokémon to become the strongest in the outer forest, but clearly, the human had a lot of Pokémon. Taking on an entire team alone wasn't fear, it was rational judgment. Besides, every time Scyther got close to that human, it felt its fighting spirit being suppressed, an uncontrollable drop in aggression. And now, the same feeling returned. The source of this suppression was inside the workshop. Reluctantly leaving the berry and herb gardens behind, it had no interest in regular crops. Scyther studied the front door. It had seen human settlements before but had never entered one, so its understanding of doors was limited. How did this door open? Break it down? No, too risky. That would attract attention. If it must break something, it had to be somewhere hidden. Since the front wouldn't work, Scyther began circling the workshop and eventually spotted something. At the back was a makeshift wooden shed, clearly a recent construction. Beside it was a wooden wall. Unlike the rest of the workshop's mixed stone and sturdy materials, this section looked like it could be opened. Perfect. Scyther's blades lit up as it swung hard. Scyther used slash. It was super effective on the workshop's forging room wall. With a single cut, the back door of the workshop was split in two, crashing outward to the ground. The inside of the forge was laid bare. Minerals, materials, clay, forging tools, everything was there. Scyther's eyes scanned the supplies and found a piece of sandpaper, which it promptly rubbed along its blades. Oh! This stuff worked great for sharpening its scythes. Scyther's eyes gleamed. It sliced the sandpaper cleanly, lifted it with its blade, and placed it outside the workshop, planning to take it when it left. Then it spotted a pile of shiny items. Cha! Orbs are shiny, so shiny things equals life orbs. Could it be, this human knew how to make orbs? Scyther approached eagerly, and the moment its blades touched the shiny metal cases, the workshop's underground magnetic field stirred. The previous day, the area's magnetic field had been concentrated by Metagross after eating the powerful iron foods, and due to Shinto's unique nature, the magnetism remained highly active. When Scyther touched the metal coat, it triggered a reaction just like what happened in ancient Hisui. Back in the Hisui region, under certain magnetic influences, Scyther could evolve into Caesar just by using a metal coat, no trading required. Now, in this environment similar to Hisui, it happened again. Cha! Cha! Scyther looked at its body in horror as steel-type energy and the Earth's magnetic field violently surged into it. Brilliant white light burst forth with the sound of evolution echoing through its heart. Its color shifted, its form became bulkier. Red enveloped its body, and its blades turned into massive pincers. It stared in disbelief at its changing limbs and form. It was no longer Scyther. It had become Caesar. Cha! I evolved. The evolution it had long sought had happened by pure chance. Caesar's heart raced in exhilaration. It could hardly contain its joy. Power surged through its body, fierce, overwhelming. In this outer forest, who could challenge it now? Even that human, he would never stop Caesar now. Evolved, yes, evolved. Which meant stronger, right? Unfortunately, Scyther's evolution doesn't increase its total base stats, but Caesar didn't know that. It was just a Pokémon. Now fully evolved, Caesar easily smashed open the forge's inner door. With its massive pincers, it wreaked havoc, breaking the door apart. It began patrolling the workshop, eager to find even stronger tools. There had to be treasures here. More and more. Suddenly, Caesar saw its reflection in a mirror, tall and powerful. Its lips curled into a smug grin. It turned away and found a stash of rare candies and poke puffs in the kitchen. With a snap of its claws, it began feasting on the spot. Level up. 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 But behind Caesar, the mirror's surface began to ripple. A pair of crimson dragon-like eyes peered through the mirror, staring directly at the invader of the workshop, Caesar. Gaia. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 138. To think it dared invade the workshop, what a brazen fool. From the mirror that connected to the distortion world, Giratina had merely intended to check on the workshop's status. But unexpectedly, it discovered a wild Pokémon had broken in. As Hikaru's contracted partner, an intrusion into Hikaru's workshop was the same as intruding into its own distortion world. Unforgivable. It had to strike back immediately in origin form. A terrifying roar erupted, carrying immense suction as it spiraled into a monstrous vortex. Caesar, who had been happily devouring rare candies, was so startled by the shriek that it nearly choked. Its eyes bulged as it coughed and beat its chest violently with its massive claws. Caesar used knock-off on itself. Super effective. Chahas. What the hell was that? Caesar turned to see the kitchen swallowed by shadows, thick and oozing like black sludge. The rare candies and poke puffs vanished. Within the mirror, a crimson eye stared directly at it. It was a scene straight out of a horror movie, but Caesar wasn't scared in the slightest. It was a wild Pokémon, after all. There were tons of ghost types in the forest. Caesar had seen more than enough. Show your real form already. Unfazed, almost like it had an illegal fearless ability, Caesar raised a fist and struck the mirror. Its crimson pincer gleamed with a silver light, unleashing a storm of silver flashes that burst forth in a barrage of rapid punches. It struck with such speed and intensity that multiple shadows formed around its arm, hammering the mirror and surrounding wall in a rain of attacks. After evolving, Caesar had automatically learned its signature move, Bullet Punch. A fast and hard punch, as swift as a bullet, always strikes first. But the silver punches vanished the instant they struck the mirror, as if they never existed. The surrounding area rippled with strange waves. From the shadowy realm beyond the mirror, a dragon-shaped swirl of black sludge shot out, biting down on Caesar. Has. Bullet Punch had no effect, just like how normal type moves are useless against ghosts. But this was a steel type move, how could it not work? Even with its bold nature, Caesar began to panic. This situation, this force. It defied all common knowledge. This wasn't a regular battle. The vortex at the center of the mirror began spinning faster, and Caesar was suddenly yanked toward the mirrored world. The world turned upside down. The workshop filled with comfort and vitality vanished, replaced by a gloomy, decaying, ancient forge. Everything was dark and cracked. It looked as if 1,000 years had passed in an instant. Everything could collapse at any moment. Where is this? Caesar could still feel the force dragging it in. Having just consumed so many powerful candies and poke puffs, it had gained tremendous strength. Its bold nature drove it to do what no average Pokémon would dare. Just like with that rock titan, if one fight failed, it would challenge again and again. So now whoever this was, it didn't matter. If you dare attack me, then fight me head on. Has. Bullet Punch again. The explosive steel-type energy shattered the door of the ruined workshop. Caesar strode out from the rising dust and shadows, eyes blazing with fierce battle spirit. Fine then. No matter who you are. I'll show you the overwhelming power of steel. Gaia. Giratina used Will-O-Wisp, Blue Flame variant. The creature, a twisted fusion of centipede and shadow dragon in hues of black, grey, and gold, launched a blazing blue fireball from above. Boom. Super effective. Caesar was still thinking, what the hell is that Pokémon? When the Will-O-Wisp smashed into it head-on. Will-O-Wisp, also called Ghostly Flame, is known for inflicting burns. Many Pokémon can learn it, but what Giratina unleashed was entirely different. Giratina's version was a fierce blue fireball, like a lesser version of Reshiram's Blue Flare. It wasn't just a status move, it had crushing force and guaranteed burns. This was far beyond a normal Will-O-Wisp. The raging flames engulfed Caesar. Despite being steel/bug type and resisting many other elements, it bore the curse of being quadruple weak to fire. Has. Caesar was burned. And not just burned, nearly obliterated. The ghostly flames left it writhing in agony. Its mind flashed with vivid memories of being a weak little scyther, constantly attacked by wild bird Pokémon, of being hunted by a massive rock dragon. Has. Somehow, Caesar held on. In that critical moment, it triggered a memory flashback, a sign of true strength. You freakish Pokémon! Don't look down on me. I won't die here. Not in some twisted place like this. Gat. Giratina narrowed its gaze. It hadn't expected this little thief to be so resilient. Still, compared to itself, it was pitifully weak. Staring at the burned and kneeling Caesar, who refused to fall, Giratina asked coldly. Gaia? You there? Why did you enter this workshop? This is not a place for you. Speaking Pokémon language, of course. Has. Caesar panted heavily. The burn continued to torment it. It had survived, but without counterattack, fainting was only a matter of time. Why did it enter the workshop? Ah, so this Pokémon was also one of that human's allies. Caesar's guard shot up. It couldn't believe it. Has. Of course I entered to become stronger. To get powerful items and defeat all the Pokémon in the forest, become the outer forest's overlord. Has. How could someone like you, born powerful, understand the feelings of a weak Pokémon? I was attacked the moment I was born. Birds pecked at me. A rock dragon chased me. I barely survived by crawling to this forest. I've done everything to grow stronger. That's who I am. Gaia. Giratina roared in disapproval. The enormous dragon cry made Caesar flinch, but it didn't cower. Bold nature wouldn't allow that. Giratina, so, to become stronger, you invade someone else's territory? Even I wouldn't do such a thing. That workshop is a sacred place, it can't be defiled. When its master returns, you will pay for what you've done. Has. Caesar scoffed. It was a wild Pokémon, it didn't follow rules. Giratina narrowed its dragon eyes. In Caesar, it saw a reflection of its younger self. Defiant. Arrogant. Ruthless. And now, Giratina realized how immature it once had been. That restlessness, that anger, maybe that was how Arceus once looked at it, too. So, that's what I used to be like? No wonder. If I were like that back then. If it had been the old me, I'd have admired this Caesar, perhaps even rewarded it with a bolt of divine wrath, transforming it into a gold-hued noble king of Hisui. But not anymore. The old me caused chaos, thinking it was fighting injustice. But the Pokémon world doesn't operate on fairness. As one of the first Pokémon created, I have a greater mission. Even now, I haven't given up on my revenge against Arceus. But how I go about it has changed. All life meets other life. And together, they create something new. Gaia. So here's the deal. I won't use fire-type moves anymore. I'll use other power to test you. But if you lose, you'll obey my command. Refuse, and you'll never leave this world again. Giratina had issued its challenge and its threat. Then it roared skyward, shattering the skies of the distortion world. Thick clouds gathered. It began to rain. The white smoke on Caesar's body signaled that the ghostly flames had been washed away. It forced itself upright, flexed its pincers, and let out a defiant roar, then launched itself into the air. Gravity here was strange. Pokémon with strong leg power could leap high, even hover mid-air. Though heavy and unable to fly, Caesar had enough strength to stay airborne here, that was enough. Bullet punch. A silver gleam surged at Giratina. Giratina narrowed its dragon eyes. Defiant by nature, tragic past. Kid, let me guide you back to the right path. The world has countless strong beings. Becoming stronger through any means has its limits. Your reckless ways will lead to disaster. And right now you don't understand that at all. Giratina used Dragon Tail. A massive force swept away Bullet Punch. Fear filled Caesar's eyes as Giratina's tail grew in his vision. Boom! Caesar was struck like a ragdoll, flung through the air like a broken kite, soaring across the ruined sky and crashing into a floating island far away. A huge cloud of dust rose. As it blacked out, a sense of helplessness surged within Caesar. What? What kind of terrifying power is this? Even after eating all those mysterious candies, it still wasn't enough. Watching the unconscious Caesar, Giratina summoned its spiritual power and sent word to Hikaru at the Rock Mountain ruins. The intruder has been dealt with. Order is being restored. Let this Caesar be the first guest of the distortion world. And let it experience the beauty of this new realm properly. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 139. The strange tremors in the Rocky Mountain ruins had just subsided. As Regirock roared in excitement, the patterns on the ground lit up once again. A bizarre psychic wave rippled outward, leaving both Steven and Hikaru puzzled. What had just happened? Were the Rocky Mountain ruins always like this? At the same time, Hikaru received feedback from his Pokémon. Dowblade has completed a construction project. Acquired knowledge, Psychic Sculptor precision of Psychic Blades. Accuracy, power, and control plus 15%. Fineness of Psychic and Aura manipulation plus 15%. Comprehension of Aura has improved. Lilligant has completed a construction project. Acquired knowledge, Blade Sculptor precision of slicing moves. Accuracy, power, and control plus 15%. Efficiency against super effective targets plus 15%. Comprehension of Aura has improved. Turtwig has completed a construction project. Acquired knowledge, Grass Shaper can reshape rock, grass, and ground terrain using moves. Shaping technique plus 100%. Move precision, accuracy, power, and control plus 15%. Unknown has completed a construction project. Acquired knowledge, Ruins Awakening can adjust the energy flow within ruins. Influence of hidden power plus 25%. And it wasn't just Hikaru's Pokémon. Steven's Metagross and Metang, too, seemed filled with question marks over their heads. In that instant, they had gained unique abilities and could feel a tangible shift in their strength. Psychic powers had undoubtedly grown stronger. Metagross's eyes sharpened instantly. While Metang was happily celebrating its sudden increase in power, Metagross was staring intently at Hikaru. Without a doubt, the transformation had come from this human, not the ruins. In that case. So this is how it is. By working with this human, one could keep getting stronger? Steven had been wondering, what if those nutritious snacks he prepared were given to that shiny silver Metagross? Even though this Metang had become stronger, it was still only in its second evolutionary stage. That wasn't bad, but what if it could go even further? Now, the answer was right in front of him. Metu. Metagross nodded at Hikaru, as if it had made some kind of decision. It would secretly follow him around, grow stronger from the work, and then impress that silver Metagross. Wasn't this a golden opportunity made just for itself? Coming to Shinto and meeting such a mysterious human, it was pure luck. Though Hikaru didn't quite understand what Metagross was saying, after all, it wasn't an ancient Pokémon, he could still feel its determination and approval. So he returned a gentle smile. Thanks for the help, Metagross. And you too, Metang. Metang waved its claws happily. Getting stronger? Metang didn't really know much about that. But as long as it was Steven's command, it would do anything. Helping out Steven's friend was simply the best thing. Just then, Hikaru suddenly clutched his head as an echo from within his soul drew his attention away. He heard a message from Giratina. The workshop had been invaded by a Pokémon? Upon learning that the intruder was a Scizor, Hikaru was stunned. A Scizor had infiltrated the workshop to steal something? Wait, could it be that Scyther boss? In its pursuit of power-enhancing tools, it had resorted to theft. Hikaru had already heard similar stories from Dusk Noir before, but he hadn't expected that the Scyther had actually found his workshop. Even though he hadn't yet met it, it seemed the Scyther had been watching him for quite some time. It evolved using the metal coat I made. Most wild Pokémon lacked any moral compass. This had already been clear with the rowdy Hisuian Electrode. However, if one could defeat them in battle, wild Pokémon naturally came to recognize their own faults, something quite curious. Despite possessing great intelligence, wild Pokémon often still lived like beasts fighting for survival. Unlike Pokémon living in cities, wild ones rarely cooperated, and most either ignored each other or were outright hostile. So, if a Pokémon came to steal, of course Hikaru couldn't just let it go. According to Giratina, the Scizor had stolen some rare candies and Pokeblocks, but before it could cause any more damage, it had been caught red-handed by Giratina, who happened to be admiring its reflection. I believe it must pay a price. After being defeated by me, it seems it'll need a long time to recover. What do you think should be done? It's a lost Pokémon. Since it seeks strength and values battle, then I shall teach it that true power comes from honest growth, not shortcuts. Are you thinking something impolite? I've turned over a new leaf, you know. Hikaru, no, I just thought your plan sounded pretty reasonable. Let the Scizor stay in the distortion world for a while. Based on your description, it might have some psychological issues. That seems to be the case. Giratina then relayed the Scizor's own explanation, and Hikaru finally understood. So, it had endured psychological trauma in its youth, which led to an obsessive pursuit of power. Many bird Pokémon like to flock together and attack travelers, probably the Spearow family. Even Ash, the super rookie trainer, had suffered at the hands of a Spearow swarm. But considering that the Shinto region also included Pokémon from Sinnoh, Johto, and other regions, it could also have been Skarmory, Staraptor, Hisuian Braviary, or even a gang of thuggish Murkrow and Honchkrow. Though Scyther has a base stat total of 500 and is quite powerful, as a low-level newborn, it had no hope against strong flying types. And come to think of it, Scyther is known to be semi-social. But this leader was clearly a loner, likely orphaned from a young age. Then there was the part about being hunted by an Aerodactyl. That detail was disturbingly accurate. Are there really wild Aerodactyl in the Shinto forests? A Pokémon that should have only been revived by technology, how was it in the wild? We'll have to wait until we meet it to know the full story. But, if it's a mental issue, maybe Unown can help. Hikaru looked toward Unown. It was still proudly basking in the glow of its newly awakened power. When it saw Hikaru's gaze, it gleefully floated over. Unown. How about that? My power restored the ruin. First time doing something this big, you know. You're amazing, that's the truth. In the anime, the Salation ruins in Sinnoh could also be activated by Unknown, so Steven's guess was correct. The Rocky Mountain ruins had now been properly activated. Regirock felt the peaceful energy within the ruins and was amazed it had been restored better than ever before. Indeed, leave professional tasks to professionals. It had been repairing the place for so long, but it had always looked like a pile of rubble. And the psychic wave just now, if it wasn't mistaken, it meant Reigi. Regirock thanked Hikaru and Steven, then explained that the other two giants had likely been awakened by that psychic wave. The Rocky Mountain ruins retained immense psychic power from the ancients. That power was linked to the giants, and since all three giants resided in the same forest and their ruins weren't far apart, they could sense each other. That was different from how giants were sealed separately in other regions. Regirock is thanking you, Hikaru translated for Steven. Steven smiled gently. Watching the ruins restored, he felt he'd experienced yet another incredible journey. The credit goes to the craftsman who restored it. Even if I knew everything about the ruins, without Hikaru Dano's craft, I couldn't have recreated this ancient beauty. Steven ran his hand across the restored reliefs, eyes distant, as if seeing a vivid illusion. Though it had just been carved, it exuded an unmistakable ancient charm. Even as a gemstone expert, he couldn't tell the difference. Regirock tapped Steven's shoulder gently. Even so, Steven winced, almost collapsing from the force. The H-shaped symbol on Regirock's face gleamed. You, who traveled so far to help, I will give you my most precious gems in thanks. It's the reward I promised. Steven's eyes sparkled immediately. You're too kind, this is my duty. He clasped Regirock's rocky arm, his sincere emotions moving the ancient giant, showcasing the deep bond between people and Pokémon. Regirock was overjoyed. It even mentioned that nearby was a great place to dig for rocks. Many rare stones had been found there. It invited Steven to mine together someday. Steven was seriously tempted. Since he was staying in Shinto to wait for Hikaru's crafted tools to bring back to Devoncorp, he couldn't just hover around Hikaru all day. The thought of exploring with Regirock was enticing. To dig rare stones in peace, with no outside interference, alongside a like-minded friend and a perfectly synced legendary titan, what kind of paradise was this? Nearby, Metagross sighed. Two stone-digging maniacs had met, and it was like magnets, instantly inseparable. Regirock, too, was filled with excitement for the future. Now that the ruins were fixed, it could even convert them into a trading post, mini-shop. Hikaru said, it's getting late. We've spent a lot of time repairing the ruins, let's head back for now. Regirock waved an arm. Reigi. It wasn't going back tonight. It wanted to redecorate the ruins with rock furniture. By the time they returned tomorrow, it would be a whole new place. Somewhere in the forest. Hegetsu the Ursaluna slowly regained consciousness in the darkness. It had lost, beaten and driven off in shame by the iron giant wielding a massive hammer. Exhausted and powerless, it collapsed here. The giant had refused its plea and said, if you want it, come and take it yourself. Though Hegetsu had the type advantage, it still lost, completely baffling. Much like its battle with the rock titan. Back then, at least, it left with some dignity as the mountain god, retreating after a pointed stone strike. Ugh, so weak. The iron giant's weapon was beyond normal standards, and its moves were strange. The black metal hammer could fire intense chi blasts. No, even the hammer itself seemed infused with similar power. And the strange light surrounding it summoned fiery energy, turning the battlefield into flames. Steel types should fear fire, yet that giant was bizarre. Hegetsu had no chance in close combat. If this continued, it would never retrieve the Earth Plate. Its ancient homeland would continue to wither. Many Pokémon were still waiting for it. It had made a promise. If the enemy had a weapon, it too needed one. But where could it find something like that? Its claws weren't made for gripping tools. Hegetsu surveyed the area. The night couldn't hinder its vision. Nearby was a cave leading to distant mountains and plateaus. It walked inside. Right now, it needed a place to rest. Growling. Hegetsu heard a voice. Seek help from the human craftsman. He is outside the forest. He can help you restore your home. Ro. Hegetsu suddenly jolted awake. Around it swirled a faint green glow. Was this a sign from the forest god of the past, or the future? But how was it supposed to find that craftsman? The forest's edge was vast. It sharply looked outside the cave and noticed rock-type Pokémon gathering in one direction. It even heard them talking. The Earth's power was converging at a ruin, now a haven for rock types. A legendary giant had drawn in a strange human craftsman. Row. A human, craftsman. Then the destination was clear. First, head to the Rocky Mountain ruins. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support. Chapter 140. Regirock was busy moving stones, arranging them inside the temple to resemble common furniture like tables, chairs, and benches. Since it was going to be a place for Pokémon to trade with one another, it naturally needed the appropriate setup. 4 square stones were placed as supports, then a large, flat slab was set atop them, forming a wide stone table. 2 smooth stones were used as stools, placed around the table. He then brought over long rectangular stones, building them into a shelf-like shape using mud as adhesive. Though not particularly refined, Regirock was quite satisfied with the resulting stone display stand. Stone, after all, could be carved into elegant statues or left in its rough and uneven form. Either way, its charm would shine through. Different kinds of stones each had their own unique uses across various domains. Regirock thought of the statues Hikaru had crafted and felt the temple should house more of those exquisite stone sculptures. Since this was a temple of rock, it was only right to display rock-type Pokémon statues, but not too many, lest they outshine the main purpose. Reg. As for merchandise, evolution stones, precious rocks, rare minerals, and delicious edible stones, what else? A group of rock-type Pokémon had gathered near the Rocky Mountain ruins, drawn by the land's unique atmosphere. The feeling was rather mysterious. Word of mouth among the Pokémon spread the news far and wide. Geodudes appeared at the temple's entrance. The rocky environment soothed them, filling their hearts with peace. They could feel the elemental energy within them growing steadily. Regirock's H-shaped symbol flickered as it spotted the hesitant Geodudes at the door. These Geodudes were known for being hot-headed and stubborn, often violent, furiously punching when angered. Yet here they were, being surprisingly polite. Unlike Graveler, which lived on cliffs and mountain roads, Geodude could be found in forests, plains, deserts, and caves, basically everywhere except water. Reg. Ah, welcome welcome. Our very first guests. Unfortunately, the shop didn't have any merchandise ready just yet. Geo. The Geodudes were somewhat intimidated by the stone giant before them, but after hearing Regirock's voice, they began whispering among themselves, seeming to make a decision. They hopped away, leaving the temple quiet again. Before long, the Geodudes returned, this time carrying various strange stones. Geo. They expressed their intent not to buy, but to stay. These stones were their rent payment. Pokémon do engage in trade with each other too, though in the wild, instinctive aggression often leads them to resolve matters through battle. Thus, only weaker or less aggressive Pokémon typically participate in trade. Geodudes weren't known for bartering, but the calming aura around the temple seemed to subdue their usual temperaments, leading them to offer trade in exchange for shelter. Shas Harry. Regirock's symbol blinked joyfully. Of course, that's fine. And it had unexpectedly gained merchandise? These stones were varied, likely food items the Geodudes had dug up from different places. Besides berries, many rock-type Pokémon considered stones part of their diet. Different stones had different flavors. Graveler, for example, enjoyed moss-covered stones and consumed a ton of rock daily. Larvitar was known to eat a whole mountain's worth of earth before evolving. Regirock understood Geodudes' dietary habits well. Long ago, humans used to keep Geodudes to transport stone or even to help pickle vegetables. He thought of the luminous moss growing on his body, a gift from Hikaru to help Regirock move freely even in the rain. Its appearance was already starting to resemble its creator, Regigigas. A symbol blinked above Regirock's head like an exclamation point. He gestured for the Geodudes to wait a moment, then fetched some high-density stones. Using his stone arm, he scraped off some of the luminous moss and transplanted it onto those stones. This special moss had been cultivated through unique techniques and grew rapidly. As soon as it landed on the stones, it began spreading. A vibrant life force enveloped the rocks, and the Geodudes' eyes lit up. They were drooling in anticipation. Gravelers loved moss-covered stones, so of course Geodudes did too. And once Graveler evolved into Golem, well, that's when things got really interesting. Over time, ancient golem were said to grow mossy, their bodies turning green. Regirock's symbols blinked in a flurry. Using luminous moss to make food for rock-type Pokémon. Wait a second, wasn't this supposed to be a general store? How did it turn into a restaurant? Oh well, this wasn't bad either. After all, food counted as merchandise too. Geo. As the Geodudes munched on the mossy stones, another visitor arrived at the temple entrance. A Sadaudo. Looking like a tree, its body bore 5 yellow spots on its belly. Each of its hands ended in 3 green, ball-like fingers like branches with leaves. Sadaudo immediately locked eyes on the luminous moss on Regirock's body. Woo! Though this was their first meeting, it pleaded. Legendary giant, please share some of that moss with me. I'll do anything. Regirock. Looking at Sadaudo, Regirock thought about the lack of large green plants in the temple like potted greenery. Of course, you couldn't really plant trees inside a temple, but as humans put it, it needed interior greenery. Re-e.g. If you want the luminous moss, you have to trade something just like the others. Sadaudo pondered for a moment, then waved its arms and darted away. After a while, it returned, holding a rock studded with red crystals. Regirock gave a sound of approval and plucked a bit of moss from its body. But Sadaudo thought that wasn't enough. Regirock explained that the moss was still needed for his own use. If Sadaudo wanted more, he'd have to ask the human craftsman outside the forest to grow it. Moreover, if this moss covered your body, even rain wouldn't be a problem anymore. Sadaudo was shocked. It repeatedly examined the moss on its arms, then looked at the huge patch on Regirock, eyes full of envy. What a treasure this moss was, a gift for rock types that feared the rain. But, the one who grew this moss wasn't the Titan, but the human craftsman outside the forest? Sadaudo paused. Just then, one of the Geodudes around one, clearly older, spoke up. It had once seen that human near Celebi's shrine. Re-e.g. Regirock explained the origins of the luminous moss and the mysterious craftsman, leaving the Pokémon in awe. A human who could create powerful food and cultivate tools? Humans had that kind of ability? Re-e.g. That's no ordinary human, he's a special craftsman, one who has been blessed by the forest god. If you want to trade with him, go to the workshop outside the forest. If you're too shy, you can come here instead, but you'll have to bring stone materials as payment. The Pokémon looked at each other. Dealing with the giant was preferable, it was a fellow Pokémon, after all. Though many Pokémon lived with humans in villages, wild Pokémon had vastly different habits and thinking. The forest dwellers had no plans to change their ways. If Regirock could communicate with the craftsman, that would be ideal. Sadaudo and the Geodudes all wanted luminous moss. Soon, the Geodudes hopped off to summon their friends and family, heading toward the Rocky Mountain ruins. Meanwhile, Sadaudo simply stood against a wall. If someone had poor eyesight, they'd think it was just a big potted plant. As night deepened, the Geodudes returned with kin, but then an overwhelming presence approached the temple gates, startling Regirock. With a body cloaked in orange and grey, a strange black left eye, and a crimson blood moon on its forehead, the massive bear crept toward the ruins, trying its best not to cause alarm. But Hegetsu was shocked to see the ruin already repaired. The destruction it had caused before, was all of this fixed by that human craftsman's power? Re-e.g. A visitor? That one's up to no good. Regirock and the bear Pokémon, who had once carelessly damaged the temple, locked eyes. Tension immediately surged. Are you here to wreck my place again? Regirock stood ready, on full alert, while Hegetsu frantically waved its paws. Gakai. I'm not here to fight. In fact, I've come to beg for help. To prove my sincerity, I even brought rare stones. Please, mighty giant, tell me where the human craftsman lives. I'll do anything. Hegetsu pleaded, pulling strange rocks from its fur. But just as it finished speaking, a wave of weakness hit it like a sledgehammer, and with a crash, it collapsed, smashing the freshly built stone table Regirock had just finished. End of chapter. Check out my Patreon for plus 20 extra chapters on all my fanfics. www.patreon.com/Zalum. Plus 500 power stones equals plus 1 extra chapter. Thank you for your support.
Additionally, if you would like to request novels and access my Google Drive where I have 200 plus audiobooks, then you can join my Patreon. Link is also provided in the description.